heiress. 2020, Magical City of Long. Success is certainly not for the lazy. Lyca Huang nodded at her cousin's words. She rested her elbows on the table and propped her chin on her palms. Her brown eyes that mirrored her cousin's sparkled with mischief as she smiled at her. Lyca could tell her 5 reasons why lazy people were more likely to be successful. However, she was too lazy to open her mouth and argue. I agree, she answered. Besides mocking her, Huang Shaoxian actually had a point. Of course you would, her cousin sneered. I am not being nosy. But I think the fact that you are already 21 and have not even started with your college education is crazy. What do you think will happen if you introduce yourself as my cousin? Disgust clouded her gaze. I haven't tried it, Lyca shrugged. They will think I have a lazy cousin. Huang Xiaoshuan's beautiful face morphed into a scowl. Lyca nodded and didn't bother to correct her cousin's words. Why try to impress someone who she didn't like? I agree, she said for the second time as her lips lifted into a mocking smile. As expected, her cousin's face turned ugly. She glared at Lyca for a few seconds, her eyes narrowing on Lyca's red dress before she turned to talk to the person sitting next to her. Seeing this, Lyca chuckled. Since the party began, everyone had been avoiding Lyca like a plague, and yet this Huang Shaoxian still dared to sit next to her. She must have thought that she could provoke Lyca into talking to her. If this were her past life, Huang Shaoxian would already be dead, her throat slit from one of Lyca's daggers. However, in this life, she was too lazy for such things. She would rather stay quiet and become an absolute wallflower than attract anyone's attention. Lyca threw another grape into her mouth. She looked at the other Huang family members socializing with each other as she tried to stop herself from yawning. She immediately reminded herself not to think about her king-sized bed anymore. She lowered her head and looked at the scarlet liquid in her wine glass. It sparkled under the light of the chandelier just above her, making it look like a part of the starlit night sky just outside of the mansion. She lifted the glass and held it in front of her nose. Smelling its aged aroma somehow made her more sleepy. She stifled another yawn. I have an announcement to make, Huang Yitsong, the patriarch of the Huang family, said in a room full of Huangs. His croaky voice was loud enough to interrupt the roaring conversation among the nearly 20 people in the dining room. This announcement must be big, Lyca silently thought as she lazily leaned back on her velvet chair. After all, Huang Yitsong would not have made this birthday party exclusive to their family if it wasn't. She looked at her grandfather, who just turned 80 years old today. She tucked a loose strand of her ash-blonde hair behind her ear as she looked at the various expressions of the other members of the Huang family. Slowly, the conversations died down. Everyone please take a seat, her grandfather gestured for everyone to take their seats at the long rectangular table in the room. Lyca examined her grandfather. The old man's robust physique towered over everyone as he stood, holding his wineglass in his left hand. For a few seconds, her eyes darted toward the moon pendant on his neck. Memories, sad ones, clouded her gaze. Today I turned 80, her grandfather started. Years ago, before my late wife passed, I promised her that I would never stop working for the company that we built together. I also promised her that once I turned 80 I would announce the person that will inherit the company. Gasps and murmurs immediately followed the old man's words. Judging from everyone's reaction, it seemed that no one really expected the old man to announce such matters now. Father, I have a question. Huang Ying, the eldest daughter of Huang Yitsong, raised her hand. What is it? Her grandfather lifted an eyebrow. Are you saying that after today you are going to leave the company? For the second time, murmurs echoed inside the dining room. The old man had been working in this company for almost 6 decades. Was he finally leaving? No, the old man shook his head. He then looked at his 3 sons and his only daughter. Then slowly, his gaze roamed towards his grandchildren's faces. My successor needs training. I am not leaving the company until I am sure that this person can manage the business well, he uttered. For a few seconds, Lyca thought that her grandfather's eyes had paused in her direction. However, she was quick to shrug the feeling off. Since transmigrating into this body, she had actually never recalled her grandfather being close to her. All right then, a confident smile bloomed on her aunt's face. Hearing this, the old man cleared his throat and started talking about the history of the Huang security group. She looked at her grandfather, pretending to listen to the story that she heard every family gathering. While she found all this boring, Lyca would also not miss seeing the drama that would come after this announcement. She could not wait to find out who was the unlucky person who her grandfather would name as the person who would follow in his footsteps. Lyca absent-mindedly propped another grape in her mouth as she pretended to comprehend her grandfather's words. This is why with the happiest heart I want to let everyone know that I chose my one and only granddaughter, Lyca Huang, the daughter of my 3rd son, as my successor and the future CEO of Huang Security Group. Silence followed her grandfather's words as they echoed inside Lyca's ears. For a few minutes, not one person inside spoke a word as they awkwardly looked at Lyca, then back to the old man who this granddaughter clearly resembled. Father. What kind of madness is this? Previous chapter. Chaos. That was not enough to describe the events following the announcement. Yelling instantly ensued. Questions, conjectures and insults were thrown. How could Lyca manage the company? She hadn't even started her college education. She had neither the experience nor the brains to do it. Father. How could you say this? Huang Ying, the eldest of Huang Yitsong's 4 children asked. Her beautiful face contorted into an ugly scowl. Are you joking? Father, isn't this a bit too sudden? Naming an heir who is only 21 with no experience whatsoever is a bit illogical. I agree. She is too young and inexperienced. She does not have a job, and she is clueless about business. How could she run a multi-million-dollar empire? She hasn't even finished her college education yet. She is too lazy. How could she manage a company? Her father spoiled her a lot too. She grew up being treated like a princess. There is no way that. Lyca listened as everyone started shouting at the same time. She opened her mouth to say something, but in the end, she decided against it. It would be nothing but a waste of her energy. Lyca propped her chin into her palms, her eyes crinkled as she smiled at everyone who looked at her. Arguing against someone who had already made up their mind was just too tiring. Popping a grape into her mouth, Lyca returned her grandfather's calm gaze. Her grandfather's white hair, that was almost identical to hers, caught her eyes. A suspicion instantly ran rampant in her mind. However, she was too lazy to confirm it. Not when everyone was shouting and pointing their fingers at her and her father. Enough, the booming sound of the patriarch's voice instantly silenced everyone. It echoed against the walls of the mansion, reminding them that they were still in the presence of the man who had firmly held the reins of the company for decades. Sit down, the old man added, his voice stern as he looked at his eldest daughter and second son. Father. I said enough. Silence followed the old man's words. A thick, ominous atmosphere started spreading inside the room. I am not done talking. The old man stated, his voice calm yet loud enough for everyone to hear. Seeing everyone turn silent, the old man continued. My decision is already final. He eyed Lyca, you will take over the company once you are ready. Training will be provided and you will familiarize yourself with the industry. He then shifted his gaze to his 4 children. Now you can ask your questions. It wasn't permission but an order. This was something that the old man always did every time he was at his company. Father, as I said, Lyca did not study business management. She is not familiar with the company. Why would you make her your heir? Huang Ying asked, ignoring her father's scowl. My brothers and I have worked in the company for years. How could you give the position to one of your grandchildren instead of us? Elder sister, you are already married to the Huang family, Huang Lidong, the second son of the patriarch sneered. Did you expect father to leave the company to you and the Huang family? You. Father, Huang Lidong interrupted his sister's words. I think Lyca is a smart woman, however, making her the CEO of the company will not only cause chaos, this will also make the shareholders question our family. How could you entrust the company to someone who hasn't even finished her education or has any work experience? Your other grandchildren are obviously more qualified than her. Please reconsider. I agree, Huang Ying reluctantly nodded at her brother's words. Lyca is young. What do you think will happen to our stock once the media gets a hold of this news? Lyca continued to listen as her aunt and uncle gave their reasons for the old man to reconsider his decision. She rolled her eyes inwardly as she ate. She then eyed her father sitting a few seats away from her. Unlike his elder brother and sister, Lyca's father was not very outspoken. As expected, the man was only listening to her brother and sister's arguments, occasionally nodding his head as if this had nothing to do with him or his daughter. What do you think about this matter, Shenghong? The old man's questions brought Lyca back from her stupor. She stared at her father who was about to answer the old man's question. Then her gaze drifted to her mother who was sitting next to her father. I believe this has nothing to do with me, Lyca's father, Huang Shenghong answered. My daughter had already turned 21 a few days back. She can now decide for herself. See? This is what I'm talking about. Shenghong spoils his daughter too much. He practically lets her do everything she wants. This, Huang Ying shook her head. This is very embarrassing, father. Please reconsider. We cannot let a woman who was spoiled rotten by her parents handle our company. Huang Ying's tone was harsh as disgust swirled in her orbs. Fool, the old man cackled. You. All of you are fools. He snorted as he sent a meaningful gaze towards his granddaughter. Granddaughter. I can only hear dogs barking up the wrong tree. He then shifted his gaze towards his eldest daughter and second son. The argument that Lyca is too young and inexperienced is already debunked by her net worth. The argument that she is uneducated is already debunked by her records. If you want to give me a good reason not to make her my heir, then feel free to do your own research and come back to me once you are ready. Father. Huang Ying furrowed her brows, confusion lacing her gaze. She looked at her brother, Shenghong. What is father talking about? Both Huang Ying and Huang Lidong turned their attention towards Huang Shenghong, then towards the slack-faced Lyca. The old man's words reverberated inside them, filling their minds with nothing but confusion and irritation. Chapter 3, Work Harder. What does this mean? Old man Huang's second son, Huang Liduo, squinted his eyes at Lyca. He then stared at the mockery in his father's face. This instantly infuriated him. It means that Lyca is a CEO at the young age of 18. Is that something that any of your spawns have achieved? The old man scoffed as he leaned against his leather chair. He eyed his granddaughter's calm expression before he sighed inwardly. This granddaughter of his was truly a mystery. He then looked at his 4 children. Huang Ying was frowning from where she sat opposite him. His third son Huang Shenghong had his daughter's nonchalant face while his youngest, Huang Qingyun was staring straight at the fireplace. Seeing the 4 of his children in his study with Lyca only made him realize that he made the right decision. What are you talking about? Huang Ying demanded. What nonsense is this? She glared at her younger brother, demanding an explanation. The explosive news from her father earlier was already enough to ruin her night. She never expected that the old man would reveal more shocking news after calling them into his study for a private meeting. Lyca? A CEO? Are you trying to make me laugh? Her condescending tone echoed inside the old man's office. Do you think this is a laughing matter? Her father lifted an eyebrow. Lyca went abroad to finish her education. She took chemistry and physics. At 18 she started making perfumes. At 19 she sold the formula to a prominent brand and quickly earned her first $500,000 by selling other formulas. Now, at 21, she is worth $20 million. He continued, satisfied by the shock on his children's faces. She earned it on her own, using her own brain, without her father's or my help. Is that something that any one of you had achieved at her age? And why don't we know this? Huang Ying asked, her gaze landing on the languid Lyca a few chairs away. Why did you hide this from us? We didn't hide it, Huang Shenghong denied. You simply hadn't asked me or my daughter. What kind of excuse is that? Huang Li Duo barked. We always thought Lyca never finished her education. And you didn't even bother to correct us? You made us and our families look like fools. Huang Li Duo's anger exploded at his third brother. How could he have hidden this information from them? So it is my fault that you assumed the wrong things? Huang Shenghong asked, his face devoid of any expression. We are your elder siblings. Do not talk to us like this. Huang Ying scolded. She let out a sharp breath as anger exploded inside her. Watching the chaos unfold in front of her only made Lyca sleepy. Disinterest flashed in her eyes. The only reason why she took chemistry and physics was that she wanted to understand more about this parallel world. However, she could not tell them this. She also couldn't tell them that selling formulas was the easiest method that she found to earn money without working very much. Lyca eyed her grandfather, who was already staring at her. To be honest, she wasn't very surprised that the old man knew about her secret. Well, it wasn't really a secret. Lyca had only made sure to keep people from noticing her. Neither she nor her parents told anyone about her achievements, and they never bothered correcting anyone who ridiculed them in the past. To them, it wasn't really a big deal. At the end of the day, Lyca and her parents had peace, and people didn't scheme behind their backs as they never saw them as threats. Wasn't that what everyone wanted? To live a lazy and casual life? Lyca and her parents wanted to live in peace. And that was the reason why they never told anyone about her education or achievements. However, explaining this to the Huang family was quite difficult. The Huang family had been fighting for status and recognition since forever. They wanted power and more power. They wanted money, fame, and recognition. To these people, wealth was everything. How could they understand the concept of life that Lyca wanted? I accept your decision, Lyca spoke for the first time, interrupting the argument that her aunt and uncle were trying to raise. She eyed her grandfather. Since you already made your decision, then I will accept it. Being an heir was something that Lyca had already experienced in her previous life. The only difference was, this time she did not have to kill anyone to get it. Wasn't that nice? She knew it would not be an easy journey. However, this was a new lifetime. And people who become heiresses in this world were pampered. She smiled inwardly. This only meant more servants and food, right? Then, all is good. Your training will start soon. I will have someone. I want someone good-looking to train me, Lyca declared shamelessly. She smiled as her aunts and uncle's jaws dropped, their eyes wide as they stared at her in horror. Good-looking? What kind of request was that? However, instead of reprimanding her, old man Huang let out a burst of deep heartfelt laughter. He shook his head helplessly before looking at Lyca. Good. I will arrange that. Father. Huang Ying recovered from her surprise. She instantly objected, can't you see? This is the wrong decision. Aunting, actually, this is only logical, Lyca chimed in. Slowly a smile appeared on her lips. I am fairly young. I value beauty above all else. A beautiful person would only encourage me to work harder. You. Also, I want to go and study management, Lyca interrupted her aunt. Her perfume business was quite simple and all she actually did was sell formulas. As embarrassing as it may seem, Lyca did not have any idea how to manage a proper business. That, and she wanted to infuriate the people in this room. I don't have a background in business, and I am only thriving in my perfume sales because of my knowledge of chemicals. And poisons, she wanted to add, but in the end, she decided against it. She couldn't really tell them that she only took chemistry because she wanted to create poisonous chemicals, right? Good. Very good. It will happen. The old man clapped his hands and beamed, his previous smugness was replaced with warmth and something unidentifiable that only made everyone more confused. This is madness. Huang Li Duo clenched his hands. He glared at his younger brother as he cursed inwardly. Growing up, this Huang Shenghong never competed with anyone else. He was too laid back and relaxed that not one of them even considered him as competition. His daughter's personality was almost identical to his cool and lazy disposition. Who would have thought that these two would come out victorious after all these years? Father, how could you have someone like this as your heir? He gritted his teeth. He could feel anger flowing inside him like a lava, threatening to erupt any time. Someone who is lazy and values appearance above experience and knowledge. Do you think you can just insult my daughter like that? Huang Shenghong's voice echoed inside the study. Who do you think is more qualified to handle the family business? Your lecherous son who has been sleeping with models and actresses. He doesn't even have the guts to accept that he got someone pregnant at the age of 18. A man like that. Huang Shenghong made a deliberate pause as he narrowed his eyes at his elder brother. A man who does not have any principles is a good for nothing. You. Do you dare fight with me, Shenghong? How dare you? My son is. So you can insult my daughter, but I cannot insult your son. Huang Shenghong sneered. I am but a silent man, elder brother. But don't you dare insult my daughter in front of me. Shenghong Li Duo, this is enough. The old man's voice echoed. I understand the concern, but only one person can inherit the company, and that is Lyca. The authority in the old man's voice was apparent. It contained the finality and decisiveness that the old man had always shown over the years. What if I can prove that Lyca does not deserve this position? Huang Ying met her father's sharp eyes. What if she doesn't perform as expected? What if she does not deliver? What will happen then? Then, she will be challenged, the old man said. By anyone. His gaze swept over his 4 children. This has always been the rule in the family. Can we issue a challenge now? Huang Li Duo asked. You can. Then, I will have my daughter, Huang Shaoxian, fight against Lyca, Huang Li Duo declared. He raised his chin, his gaze full of confidence as he looked at Lyca. Do you accept? What kind of challenge are we talking about? Lyca asked. Was it her fault that she was unfamiliar with the rules in this family? In the past, this Huang family did not have such rules. Intelligence and martial talents. Huang Li Duo eyed the old man before he observed his younger brother's reaction. Surely, Huang Shenghong would not be this confident when it came to the ability of his daughter, right? After all, Huang Shaoxian had a black belt in karate and was an expert in judo and taekwondo. There was no way that Lyca would be able to defeat her cousin. Then, no problem. Lyca yawned. She eyed the large wall clock behind her grandfather's seat and wondered when they would finish this meeting. It was already 9:30 in the evening. That was half an hour past her bedtime. She expected that once she decided to agree, these people would just stop talking and end the meeting. She was wrong. These people would never let her have her beauty rest. Lyca started to feel enraged. She could feel her pulse quicken as she started eyeing her uncle's neck. Killing this man now would surely silence him, no? She shook her head inwardly. All she wanted was to have a languid life, yet these people were disturbing her peace. What arrogance! Huang Ying sneered. This Lyca might be smart and rich, but wasn't she nothing but a lazy woman who did not know what the real world looked like? All her life, this Lyca was pampered by her doting father and loving mother. She lived in luxury all her life with her servants always following her orders. But we should make it fair, the old man said. I don't want you to think that I am favoring Lyca more than Huang Shaoxian. So, each will have their own trainer. Each will study martial arts and business management. Each will have equal opportunity to beat the other. He pursed his lips. The winner will become the heir to Huang security. The loser will spend the next 3 months in the ancestral house repenting and praying. Do you have any more suggestions? He asked. I want the loser to abandon the family name and leave the Huang family. The loser will be removed from our ancestral book. No questions asked, Huang Li Duo said. The contest will be in a month. He then looked at Huang Shengdong. What do you say, brother? Lyca's father pursed his lips. He didn't miss the mockery in his brother's eyes. I have no problem, he uttered. His daughter was someone who could even beat him in hand-to-hand combat. Lyca was a woman that not even he wanted to mess with. Of course, he would never tell this secret to his brother. But are you sure you can handle it? Your daughter, losing the family name? She already has nothing but our family name. Once she loses it. Shut it. Huang Li Duo hissed, irritation flashing in his eyes. Think about your own daughter. All right. It seems that we already have something that we can agree upon, the old man said, interrupting the turmoil that was brewing in front of him. Let's seal the challenge with our blood, he uttered as a sinister smile dangled on his lips. Perfect pizza. This was one of the reasons why Lyca loved being around her mother all the time. Thank you, she groaned as she finished off the final bite of her favorite cheese pizza. I would starve without you, she said, her eyes sparkling at her parents' stern faces. Maybe it was the wrong timing, Lyca thought. Is this because of the bet? She asked her father, Huang Shenghong. In response, her father nodded. I am confident in your skills. Knowing you, I know you will win, her father uttered. However, I am worried that Huang Li Duo and Huang Ying will scheme against you. I don't want to put you in any danger. Your father is right, Tang Nini echoed the concern in her husband's tone. The Tang family will always have your back. However, it is too risky. I would not want you to live in a separate house from us. A part of this challenge was that Lyca would live in a separate house than her parents. This was suggested by Huang Li Duo himself and was seconded by Huang Ying. The corner of Lyca's lips turned up. Since coming to this world 10 years ago, her parents were already like this. They were both loving and doting. Unlike her previous life, these two did not train her to be an assassin or pressure her to learn fighting. However, since Tang Nini came from a military family, it was only normal for Lyca to learn martial arts as well. I think you should stop worrying about this matter. If something happens to me, then I'm sure grandfather would never forgive them. Nonchalance laced her tone. She finished her juice before lazily leaning against the couch. It was already 11 in the evening and all she wanted to do was sleep after having her snack. However, she couldn't exactly say that to her parents, right? She watched as her father's lips thinned. His brows furrowed as he stood from his chair. Have a good rest. I will see you tomorrow. Alright, Lyca beamed. You just finished eating. Don't sleep yet, her mother reminded her. At least, not within 30 minutes. Alright, Lyca said for the second time. She then started walking towards her bedroom, the smile on her face never vanishing. Maybe it was because this was already her second life or because she used to practice magic in her previous life, but in this lifetime, her metabolism was as fast as it was in her previous life. She didn't really need to wait for 30 minutes before she could sleep since she knew the food that she just consumed wouldn't have any effect on her body. Lyca started humming a tune as she opened her door and went to her walk-in closet to change her clothes. She eyed her reflection in the floor-length mirror on her closet door. She frowned before letting out a long sigh. The familiarity of the face that she could see in the mirror was somehow enough to make all the memories resurface in her mind, memories that she had tried to bury since coming to this world. She hated this face. This was supposed to be another world. Another dimension. How could she still have the same face as the previous Lyca, the one who was betrayed in Su Empire? Lyca squinted her eyes at her reflection before turning towards her bed. Hate would get her nowhere. Hate would only destroy her pretty face. She chanted inwardly. She could not let the past become a part of her future. She was lucky. The gods had given her the chance to have a second life in a world without any magic. She was lucky to have generous and doting parents. She, Lyca, was lucky to even have the chance to live after all her crimes in her previous life. When Lyca woke up, the sun was already trying to force its way through the curtain. She squinted at the small rays that managed to penetrate her velvet curtains before rolling out from her bed. Eyeing the clock on her bedside table, Lyca instantly wondered why she didn't wake up from her alarm clock. Oh wait, it's broken, she muttered while rolling her eyes. Judging from the small debris scattered around the clock, she must have broken it while sleeping. This should be the 13th clock that she had broken just this month. She instantly reminded herself to put the clock at the foot of the bed or somewhere outside her reach next time. Young lady, a soft voice made her turn towards the door. She watched as one of their servants came inside. Forgive me for disturbing you, the servant's gentle voice echoed inside Lyca's room as she gave a respectful bow. She lifted an eyebrow. Miss Xiaoxian is here to see you. So early, she grumbled as she stood from her bed. What time is it, she asked. A few minutes after 10. Oh. Lyca nodded. Still too early. Tell her I just woke up. Have her join me for breakfast. She yawned before walking towards her bathroom. This Huang Xiaoxian is really something. How could she come here after the challenge? Wasn't she afraid that Lyca would kill her? Lyca laughed at her own thoughts. This world was very different from her previous one. This world had laws, and people here needed to follow them, or they would spend time in prison. Contrary to her previous world, this was a place where people had rights protecting the weak. They had rights for the poor and the oppressed. The hypocrisy. She thought inwardly as she lazily undressed herself. Despite having these laws, Lyca knew that the rich and powerful were still more valued, revered. The law didn't really matter to them. Now that she thought about it, the only difference in her world was that people in the Su Empire killed in front of everyone. They worshipped the strong and mocked the weak. In this new world, the strong still killed. However, they tended to hide it from the masses. They oppressed the impoverished while they only showed their gentle smiles and humongous donations to everyone. If this was not hypocrisy, then what was? When they told me that you sleep a lot, I never thought that you would still continue even while I'm here, Huang Xiaoxuan's voice echoed against the marble tile into the minimally decorated walls of the living room. She rose from her seat and glared at Lyca. You really dared to make me wait for more than an hour? Did I? Lyca lifted an eyebrow. A sly smile escaped her lips as she walked past her cousin and into the dining room of the mansion. Where are you going? Huang Xiaoxuan's shrill voice reached her ears. Eat. You, how dare you? I will tell grandfather about this matter. You just wait and see. I'm sure. You'll tell him that I wanted to eat? Lyca sat on the long rectangular table that was already full of her favorite dishes. Sit and eat, she commanded. Huang Xiaoxian immediately exploded when she saw Lyca's nonchalance. She walked towards Lyca. You are unbelievable, she gritted her teeth. Do you think you already have grandfather's favor just because he chose you? Grandfather is not a partial man. Once I tell him that. Noisy. Lyca raised her head and met Huang Xiaoxuan's furious gaze. Sit down and eat. Ha. Disbelief flashed in Huang Xiaoxuan's eyes. I may be younger than you, but I. If you plan to disturb my meal, please leave, Lyca interrupted as she started eating the fruits in front of her. You. Yes. It's me. Please leave. Lyca. You are going overboard. I am here to have a decent conversation with you, and you just asked me to leave. Hungry. Can't talk. Go sit. Down. And. Eat. Lyca commanded, making sure to emphasize each word. Simple instruction. Even a toddler can understand it. Seeing the disinterest in Lyca's face, Huang Xiaoxian stomped her feet and sat on the vacant chair next to her. She would never forget the embarrassment that she received today. She grabbed one of the strawberries and put it on her plate. Now. Can we talk? Who talks while eating? Lyca rolled her eyes. Ah. You stupid, you are crazy. This is insane. Huang Shaoxian snapped. This Lyca was famed for being a lazy introvert. She did not have a job and spent most of her time cooped up in her room reading books about the stars and the universe. This woman only spent her time reading, sleeping and eating. Because of this she had never developed any relationship with her cousins. Everyone in the Huang family generally avoided Lyca for being too different. Most family members just ignored her while some like Huang Shaoxian and her father looked down on her. Well, this was before her secret was revealed by the old man last night. Seeing Lyca eat as if she never heard her call her crazy only made her more infuriated. What kind of person would allow another person to call them insane? Was this because Lyca was looking down on her, which was why she could not be bothered to answer her? I want you to ask grandfather to make me the heiress and not you, Huang Shaoxian declared. I know you were only forced to agree because of your parents. You shouldn't force yourself into doing something that you don't like. She stared at Lyca, who was now eating a, "You are having burgers?" she asked incredulously. She was certain she saw Lyca eating some bananas earlier. Why was she eating a big greasy burger full of cheese now? Can you at least pretend to be normal while talking to me? She hissed. She could feel her fury boiling inside her. Huang Shaoxian felt that talking to someone like Lyca was just giving her stress. Staying with a person like this could potentially give her anger management issues and probably stomach ulcers too. Are you listening to me? Are you deaf? Lyca fired back. I said, no talking while eating, she repeated without even looking at Huang Shaoxian. You, Huang Shaoxian balled her hands into fists. She glared at her cousin. You don't deserve to become an heir. Tell me. Did you pay someone to fool grandfather about your supposed achievements abroad? Do you think you can fool everyone? Aunting and father will never believe you and your father's lies. Still, Lyca ignored her. It is very disrespectful of you to stay silent while I am talking here. Is that how your parents raised you? Does grandfather know about this? Huang Shaoxian added. Seeing Lyca continue to ignore her, she raised her hand and slammed it on the red oak table. Bang! The table shook, causing some of the fruits to fall on the floor. Answer me. I will not stand anyone disrespecting me like this. Huang Shaoxian raised her voice. Her face turned scarlet. She stared at Lyca, who had turned to look at the fruits on the floor before shifting her eyes towards her direction. Seeing that she finally got her cousin's attention, a smug smile dangled on Huang Xiaoshuan's lips. Just because grandfather declared you as the heir does not mean that it is already set in stone. Did you forget about the challenge? Once I win it, and we both know I will, you will be stripped of your last name and your status. Are you not afraid of that? In response, Lyca grabbed a napkin. She elegantly dabbed it on her lips before she cleared her throat. Is this how your father raised you? Lyca's voice was not loud, but it was crisp and clear. It contained a tinge of authority and grace. Huang Shaoxian, you must have had a sad childhood. Didn't you? She shifted her gaze and looked at Huang Shaoxian. What a pity. It seems you are nothing but a pretty face. Huang Shaoxian widened her eyes. For some reason, Lyca's words seemed to penetrate the deepest parts of her brain. You know nothing, she hissed. You and your sheltered **** know nothing about me. What a waste. Ignoring Huang Xiaoshuan's outburst, Lyca shifted her gaze to the food on the floor. People who waste food are evil. If Lyca was known as the languid one, Huang Shaoxian was known for her short temper and spoiled nature. However, everyone in the family did not mind this. After all, Huang Shaoxian was a top student, a talented piano player and an athlete. She was famous in her school and even attended international contests. Just like her father, Huang Shaoxian was also competitive and loved getting recognition from everyone. You just insulted me and father, and now you are talking about food? Raw anger shot through her like a bullet. Huang Shaoxian fought the urge to lay her hands on Lyca. Controlling her fury, she let out a sharp breath. You will regret this. I will inform my father about what you said. I will inform grandfather. I will inform my father, Lyca mocked in a squeaky voice, clearly imitating Huang Xiaoshuan's way of speaking. Are you a toddler? You. Sister Ian, Lyca interrupted her. Please clean the mess and charge Miss Huang the exact amount for the food that she wasted, Lyca directed softly. Not long after, a woman who seemed to be a couple of years older than her walked inside the dining room. You want me to pay? Lyca stared at Huang Shaoxian in response. You want me to pay for the food? Huang Shaoxian repeated her question, disbelief flashing on her face. It wasn't even an hour, and she could already feel herself aging faster than she could even blink. The more she interacted with Lyca, the more she felt that she was becoming dumber. You wasted it. You pay, Lyca said before she started eating again. No. Why the hell would I do that? You were the one who made me angry. It was your fault, not mine. If grandfather learns that you asked me to pay for the food that was wasted because of you, he will. What an eye-opener. When Huang Shaoxian heard her grandfather's voice, she instantly froze, her face paling. She turned towards the entrance that connected them to the living room. As expected, there stood old man Huang together with Huang Li Duo and Lyca's father, Huang Shenghong. It was as if a bucket of ice water was poured on her head. She felt her body turn cold as she stared at her father's angry eyes. Grandfather, she stood from her seat, her hands balled into a fist as she struggled to contain her nervousness. This is a misunderstanding. Lyca and I were just talking. Is this how you raised your daughter? The old man sneered. He turned toward his second son, then walked towards Lyca without waiting for his first son to respond. What happened here? He eyed the maid who had already started cleaning the food on the floor. However, before Lyca could even open her mouth, Huang Shaoxian quickly chimed in, Lyca insulted my father. So I got angry and slammed my hand on the table, causing the food to. This was all Lyca's fault. Grandfather, she questioned the way my father raised me and even said that I must have had a sad childhood. She sent a provoking glare toward Lyca. Is that true? Old man Huang asked. Is she telling the truth? Yes, Lyca answered in an almost irritated tone. She was hungry. She could hear her stomach calling, shouting for her to continue eating her food. I asked her to leave. She wouldn't. The old man let out a sigh. Why are you here? He asked Huang Shaoxian. Your father told me you were supposed to be in a special class today. Well. I was just here to congratulate my cousin for the last night. But she had this extremely nasty attitude. Grandfather, please don't blame me for saying something like that. I was only angry. This woman insulted me for no reason at all. Then she wanted me to pay for the food. How is that even fair? Is she really here to congratulate you? Old man Huang asked Lyca. No. You're lying. Huang Shaoxian claimed. I was originally here to congratulate you. She grabbed her bag and got the chocolate that she had originally bought for herself. I even bought this chocolate for you. As a congratulatory gift. This is imported chocolate. And yet you, Huang Xiaoshuan's eyes reddened as she looked at her grandfather. I demand justice. Grandfather, please give me justice. I don't deserve this kind of treatment. She looked at Lyca's blank face and laughed inwardly. How could Lyca beat her? She, Huang Shaoxian, was good at twisting any situation in her favor. Please grandfather, she added. She batted her sad eyes at her father, then toward old man Huang. I have proof, Lyca uttered in a low voice. What proof? Old man Huang asked. Lyca looked at Huang Xiaoshuan's miserable expression. Slowly, her lips lifted into a mocking grin. I have proof that she is lying. I am telling the truth. Huang Shaoxian fired back. How could Lyca have evidence against her? This woman was bluffing. Sister Ian, can you get my laptop from my room? The one that is connected to the cameras all over the house, Lyca spoke almost languidly. She leaned on her seat and grabbed a couple of fries. Lyca had installed cameras all over the house simply because she wanted to see everything without leaving her room. She wanted to avoid other people, so she used the CCTVs to check if anyone was visiting her parents. Of course, they were equipped with motion sensors and voice recorders. CCTV? Huang Li Duo frowned as his eyes roamed about the dining room. Why would you have CCTV in your dining room? He asked before looking at his daughter's nervous expression. He cursed inwardly. This Huang Shaoxian was so similar to him that he hated it. He knew that she must have come in here to provoke Lyca into hurting her or convince her into declining the position as the heir. He already told her over and over not to provoke Lyca for now. And yet this daughter of his was just so disappointingly dumb. Hearing this, Huang Shenghong cleared his throat. This was something that his daughter insisted upon so she could avoid going downstairs if there were people visiting them. This is for security, he uttered. My daughter wanted to make sure that every corner of our house is protected, so she installed all the security cameras by herself. He was actually the one who installed them because Lyca had asked him to. But did that even matter? That is an extreme invasion of privacy. Huang Shaoxian protested. Why would you even have? This is their house. Their rules, old man Huang interrupted her. Now, is there something that you want to tell me, young lady? His lips thinned. Grandfather, Huang Shaoxian stuttered before she composed herself. There is nothing. Father, why are we wasting our time over something like this? Our people are waiting. We are already late for today's appointment. Is this really necessary? Huang Li Duo immediately tried to convince his father to stop pursuing this case. How could he let his daughter suffer the consequences of her dumb actions? Our people have been waiting for us for almost 2 hours now just because we had to adjust to Lyca's schedule. I say, this is a bit over the top. We should just go. What are you so afraid of, elder brother? I am not afraid of anything. All I'm saying is we are running a business. We can't tolerate someone who doesn't wake up until 10 in the morning. Huang Li Duo tried to change the topic. According to Huang Shenghong, his daughter always woke up at 10 in the morning. A future CEO should not do this. Your daughter lied. Lyca's voice attracted everyone's attention. Is that something that we should tolerate? I did not lie. You insulted my father and... I insulted you, Lyca interrupted her cousin, her eyes glued on Huang Li Duo. She eyed the maid that was walking towards them and held her hand out to accept the laptop. Grandfather, I am telling the truth. Even Lyca said that she insulted my father. We should not tolerate this behavior at all. Insulting your elders deserves punishment. I agree, Lyca's fingers flew over the keyboard. She was no expert in computers, but her skills were passable enough to access a recording from a tamper-resistant system on a separate encrypted network. I should be grounded. She gave a languid smile, instantly making Huang Shaoxian irritated. Here, Lyca said as she turned the video towards them. That's. All right. That's enough. Huang Duo tried to grab the laptop but he stopped midway when he noticed his father glare at him. He pursed his lips, anger flashing in his eyes. He eyed his pale daughter before looking at the video. He knew that Lyca would have chosen to install something that recorded audio, so he had tried to divert his father's attention earlier. Hate started coursing through his veins. As expected, it was his daughter who started ranting first. Her nasty words echoed inside the dining area for everyone to hear. You were lying. Old man Huang's eyes were devoid of any expression as he turned towards Huang Shaoxian. The CCTV was already unexpected enough, the voice recording was another thing that she had never expected. A normal person would install something that took video but not audio, as this was a great invasion of privacy. However, she had forgotten that this cousin of hers was extremely far from normal. Lowering her head, she gritted her teeth. She balled her hand into a fist. And I gave you the chance to tell me the truth. Father, this is just a mere misunderstanding. These are children. Are we really going to let this blow out of proportion? Children fight all the time. Huang Duo tried to ease the situation. While he thought that his daughter was extremely dumb for coming here despite his warnings, he also thought that she didn't deserve any punishment at all. It was clear that Lyca provoked Huang Shaoxian. This was Lyca's fault. If his father needed to punish anyone, it should be Lyca. However, he chose not to voice his opinions. After all, Lyca was still the heir apparent that his father chose. Grandfather, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Huang Shaoxian could feel blood in her throat from extreme anger. However, this was not the right time for any of this. Lyca provoked me. She knew that you were coming, and she purposely provoked me so she could record this and smear my name. However, I understand that what I did was wrong. So I will accept any punishment that you give. Lyca snorted in response, mockery apparent on her face. Huang Shaoxian might sound apologetic, but she was still blaming her for instigating their argument. What a manipulative human. She eyed her beautiful cousin's slim throat before turning her head away. It's all right, she uttered. She then held her hand out in front of her cousin. Pay for the wasted food. The only thing that irked Lyca was the wasted food. She used to live in a place where food was extremely precious, as droughts often occurred. How could this woman just waste it because she was angry? How much was it? Huang Shaoxian asked. A mixture of disbelief and surprise could be seen on her flawless face. 50 plus damages. What damages are you talking about? Huang Duo asked. Delaying my lunch, she answered before she took one of the fries and shoved it in her mouth. 70 in total. Seeing Lyca's resolute expression, Huang Shaoxian opened her purse and put the exact amount of money in front of her elder cousin. Chocolates? Lyca reminded her. What chocolates? You're here to congratulate me, yes? She held her hand out again, this time it was closer to Huang Shaoxuan's face. Chocolates. Everyone turned silent. The thing was, they could not find what was wrong in Lyca's words. Huang Shaoxian said that she bought the chocolate for her cousin. It was only right that she should give it to Lyca, no? It wasn't even noon and Huang Shaoxian was already grumpy. Her face contorted into an ugly scowl as she eyed Lyca, who was sitting beside her. Of course, Lyca was ignoring her. What did she expect from this woman? She huffed and turned her attention to her phone instead. The ride towards the Huang Security Group headquarters needed at least 30 minutes, and she needed to find a way to divert her attention or she wouldn't be able to stop herself from strangling this woman. Meanwhile, Lyca was leaning against her seat, her eyes closed as she thought about her decision to become the heiress last night. She could already feel herself regretting it. And she hadn't even started doing anything yet. Now that Lyca thought about it, working under her grandfather would require a lot of effort, a lot of sleepless nights and maybe skipped meals. A part of her wanted to decline. However, she also could not deny the part of her that was curious about the old man's necklace. She remembered seeing the old man wearing the necklace ever since she came to this world. While she was not certain about it, she could see that it was the exact same necklace that she had when she died in the other world or dimension that she had come from. Her lips thinned as she let out a sigh. Lyca didn't have a single clue as to how she came to this world. Her closest guess was the existence of an alternate dimension. However, she couldn't really prove it. She had been reading a lot of books, analyzing a lot of theories and experiments. But it was all futile. Not one of them could explain how she arrived in this world. Lyca remembered reading some of the Empire of Su's journals about the universe and the stars. However, she couldn't remember any that mentioned anything about another dimension. While she came from a world of magic, Lyca had actually never heard of anyone traveling through time or between universes using their abilities. But what if this was all a freaky accident? A mistake made by nature? However, there was also the possibility that it wasn't. And the thing about things that were not accidents was that they could be repeated, duplicated. Meaning, those people could also travel to this world just like her. Now, Lyca would never let that happen. While her inner self had been telling her that this didn't matter anymore, she still could not shake off the feeling that it did. Or maybe it was just her curiosity, she didn't know. But, she was adamant on finding out the truth soon. When Lyca opened her eyes again, they were already at Huang Security. She eyed the 30-floor building surrounded by trees as Huang Shaoxian got out of the car to follow old man Huang and the others. Huang Security was a company that had been running for decades, so its building was not considered new, but it was well maintained. Despite its walls being turned to glass, the building still commanded dominance with its archaic vibe. Headquartered on top of the hill that the Huang family owned, Huang Security was an internationally known private company that offered a lot of security services. These ranged from cybersecurity, armed transportation of goods, logistics, military technology and hardware. She got out of the car and followed the group inside. Eyeing the array of black Mercedes that were parked near the entrance, Lyca let out an exasperated sigh. The number of cars seemed to tell her the responsibility that she needed to carry as the CEO of this company. She had dug her own grave. Today, I will let you choose your trainer. Old man Huang's voice reached her ears. She lifted an eyebrow in response. It seemed that her grandfather was really fair about this contest. Not long afterwards, the group arrived in old man Huang's office at the most secure location in this building, the core. Or that's what they called the place. The core was a secured and closed room 500 meters below the ground. It was designed to withstand both nuclear and chemical attacks and was well equipped with its own water system, electricity source, and food for the entire Huang family in case an emergency happened. This place housed the control system for the whole building as well as the old man's office where he worked with his most trusted people. She watched as the old man disabled the various security measures, before finally giving them access to his office. Lyca could not help but feel tired for her grandfather. How could an old man undergo this procedure every day? Retinal scans, palm scan, voice matching and other verification technology. This looked very exhausting. Lyca immediately decided that if she was really going to work in this place, she would live here instead. She would not waste her time doing all this every day as she was sure all these procedures were enough to tire her out. Alright, call them, she heard her grandfather order over the intercommunication device that sat on top of his mahogany table. Contrary to the technology that was used to build this place, her grandfather's office was actually pretty old. For some reason, the office reminded her of a place in her previous life. It was comfortable, warm, messy. It felt real. Her eyes landed on the framed images on the old man's bookshelves. There were pictures of all her relatives, his sons and daughter and each of their families. However, what caught her attention was an old photo that was placed on the topmost shelf. It was a family picture of 3 people she didn't know. However, just like her, their hair was extremely white. The mechanical sound of the door brought Lyca out of her stupor. She turned towards the entrance and stared at the 3 men walking in their direction. The 2 younger men instantly caught her attention. What eye candies, she mused. Leading the 2 was an older man, maybe around her father's age. The man stood in front of her grandfather. His stern gaze was straight as he greeted, "Director, sir." At ease, old man Huang nodded. He then turned towards the 2 younger men. "These 2 are the best of the best that we have. IQ and martial arts, intelligence and combat. Everyone, I want you to meet Shenke." He pointed at the one on the left then toward the one on the right. "And this is Lyca." Old man Ho placed his hands behind his back as he walked around the 2. "Lyca, what do you think?" Old man Ho asked. Are they good looking enough?" "Oh." Lyca nodded. She hadn't expected the old man to actually give in to her demands. Lyca had only said that to irritate her Aunt Hoing. Who would have thought that the old man would take it seriously? "Good," she answered after a few seconds of awkward silence. She looked at the 2 men and nodded in approval. To be honest, the old man could work in a brothel. It seemed that the old man's taste was extremely good. Then you chose. Both are qualified to train you. Grandfather, Huang Shaoxian chimed in. Don't you think we deserve to know everything about them? Their records, their IQ and martial arts skills? Will you really allow Lyca to choose just based on physical appearance? Huang Shaoxian fought the urge to roll her eyes at her cousin's shallow behavior. No wonder, her father was extremely confident that she would win this bet. Eyeing the 2 men, Ho Xiaoshuan's lips curled into an evil smirk. Last night, her father already told her to choose Lyca. He might not be as good looking as this Shenke, but he was actually the top of his class and was very good in martial arts. Good catch. Old man Huang nodded. Lyca, are you interested in knowing everything about them? No, Lyca said before she stood and held her hand in front of Lyca. Hand. The other complied without asking questions. Lyca said nothing as she let go of the man's hand and turned her attention to Shenke. Without saying anything, she held her hand in front of him. Her intentions were clear, she wanted to shake his hand. Just like Lyca, Shenke also complied. Seeing Lyca fall into deep thought, Huang Shaoxian immediately frowned. Could it be that her lazy cousin was able to figure out Lyca's abilities just by holding his hand? She opened her mouth, wanting to say something. In the end, Huang Shaoxian kept her thoughts to herself. She would not want her grandfather to think that she knew about this man's talents. After a couple of seconds, Lyca still didn't let go of Shenke's hand. This immediately made the latter a little uncomfortable as he wondered why this young miss was starting to stroke his hand. Was this some kind of trick? Shenke's mind turned alert. Granddaughter, is something wrong? Old man Huang asked. Just like the others, he had been confused as to why Lyca would want to hold their hands. Him, Lyca spoke. I want him. She turned towards the old man but didn't let go of Shenke's hand. Seeing this, Huang Shaoxian and even her father immediately celebrated inside their heads. Shenke was only the second in his class, and Lyca always beat him when it came to martial prowess. Have you decided? Of course, old man Huang also knew that Shenke was not as good as Lyca. His eyes turned towards Lyca's hand which was still holding Shenke's as he wondered. Could it be that Lyca chose the more good-looking Shenke because of his appearance and not his talents? Almost immediately the old man turned suspicious. How could he miss the interesting glint in Lyca's eyes? Old man Huang had watched her enough to know that Lyca was not a stupid person. In fact, she was the smartest of them all. Lyca nodded and smiled. Shunka, the old man wanted to confirm. While he was still unsure of this matter, he decided to trust his granddaughter. You want him to train you? Alright, Shunka will accompany you in your classes, which will start next week. He will act as your classmate and bodyguard. He will stay around you. This is for your safety. In case someone would want to sabotage this challenge. The old man continued. Li Xian will stay with Xiao Xian. Seeing both Lyca and Huang Xiaoxian nod, the old man gave a small nod of approval and added, after you start with your education, the challenge will be in effect. You are not allowed to go home or contact me. You can, however, ask your father to help you. But, you are not allowed to hurt each other. Am I clear? Yes, grandfather. Huang Xiaoxian stood next to her new training partner. That's right, Huang Xiaoxian did not actually view Li Xian as someone above her, like a trainer. He was just a training partner. Good, everyone leave except Lyca. Ahem, the old man eyed his eccentric granddaughter awkwardly, his eyes focused on her hands. You can let him go now. Oh. As if an electric pulse hit her, Lyca immediately let Shunka's hands go and gave a meaningful smile to the tall man next to her. Take care of me, she said, surprising everyone in the room. However, most of them were already used to her way of saying incomplete sentences because of her laziness. They immediately understood that what Lyca really meant was, Brotherka, please take care of this junior. Of course Shunka stilled. He had no way of understanding what that sentence meant. However, he had no choice but to give the weird woman a small nod. Following the director's instructions, everyone including Shunka and Lyca's father left, leaving Lyca alone with her grandfather. Silence immediately filled the room. Sit. The old man instructed as he sat on his leather chair. Granddaughter, you must be wondering? Yes. She answered. Of course, she was wondering a lot of things right now. However, she was too lazy to ask her questions. Thus, she looked at him and waited for him to explain certain things that she did not understand. Then let me explain. The old man nodded. I am not going to conceal anything to you, as you will be the one that can replace this old man. Competition. Lyca said, prompting the old man to chuckle. You will defeat her. That is something I already know. He then stood from his seat and faced the picture frames on the shelves. Our Huang family is one of the strongest families in this country. People like to associate themselves with us. Other clans worship us. However, this is nothing but a false pretense. These people know that we are growing weaker and weaker as the days pass by. His eyes were glued to the image of his wife. My sons, although competitive, do not have the talent to become the next leader. They simply do not qualify. His words made Lyca frown. The three sons of old man Huang were all brilliant and talented in martial arts. Were there any more qualifications aside from this? Moreover, Lyca always knew that their family was rich. Why was the old man talking about growing weaker every day? Of course, Lyca maintained her silence. My dear granddaughter, I want to ask you one thing. The old man made a deliberate pause as he turned and met Lyca's eyes. What is your goal in life? To live a happy and carefree life. She answered without batting an eyelid. This answer surprised the old man so much that it made him laugh. The more he looked at this granddaughter of his, the more pleasing she became in his eyes. And to achieve that, what are you going to do? Become rich and live a secure life away from people. Another boisterous laughter echoed inside the room. Not long after, his face turned serious. The old man went back to his seat and stared at his silent granddaughter. Not a trace of amusement could be seen in Lyca's eyes. It was as if she was really serious about her statement. Granddaughter, are you serious? Yes. Hearing this, the amusement in the old man's eyes vanished. But you accepted the position? Yes. Tell me why. His voice was stern, yet it wasn't enough to hide the questions inside him. This granddaughter is lazy. The CEO orders people to work. Thus, this granddaughter accepted the title so I can order more people to work for me. The old man was speechless. How could a reasoning like that exist? However, he decided to ignore this and thought that Lyca was only acting like this so he would no longer ask any further questions about her wealth. What is your future plan? To save enough and leave the company to live in a house with servants and live lazily until I die. Her monotonous answer was already expected. In the end, the old man shook his head, dejectedly. Let me tell you something about our Huang family, and then you decide whether you still want to live a carefree life just like you wish. He said. Without waiting for Lyca to nod her head, the old man continued. Our Huang family is not as wealthy as it looks. As I said, we have trained countless numbers of people, and yet, not many of them excelled in this world. Mostly they were only average. Our family needed someone that could bring the family back to the pedestal. This was not a small matter. Doing this will not be easy, and you will not be able to live the carefree life that you wanted. However, Lyca's face didn't change. Instead of reacting, Lyca listened attentively. Her eyes would casually glance at her grandfather's necklace as her mind thought of a few things. What do you mean? After a few minutes of silence, she asked her grandfather. We have money, servants and company. Why do we need to compete for this pedestal? In her previous life, Lyca had been one of those people who tried her best to compete against everyone. She was the best, the heir, the most beautiful. She was feared. However, in the end, she still met her match in the hands of the man that she loved. In this life, she would not allow that to happen again. Lyca only had one goal. And that was to live a carefree life away from schemes and distrust. To do this, she could not attract attention to herself. Thus, she had secluded herself from her family and lived the way she wanted to live. However, the position of the CEO was also quite tempting to her. It wasn't because she thought she could earn money, but it was actually because she had planned to create her own little army to defend her in times of need. Lyca Huang, the next heir, wanted to use this opportunity to build her own base and army using the technology of their security company. Once she succeeds in building her personal fortress, Lyca was planning to retire at a young age. Sleep, enjoy food and live. Wasn't that a happy future? But, how could her grandfather not understand her real goal? After she expressed her real goal, the man Huang already thought that she would use this opportunity for her own self. A sigh escaped the old man's lips. It seems that this time, the Huang family stumbled into a truly peculiar heir. Granddaughter, do you really believe that this world is as simple as you perceive it to be? He met her granddaughter's eyes. It seems that he would be forced to explain everything to Lyca for her to understand his words. In response, Lyca just stared at her grandfather. In her mind, every world was the same. Be it the magical world where she came from or this modern world. It was a place where foxes devour sheep, where the strong kill the weak. Was there another world aside from this one? Of course, she said nothing. Instead, she waited for him to continue his words. Our Huang family is not some family who got our riches from our business. We dabble in everything: black market, gambling, the underworld. For years, our family established our wealth using the blood and bodies of our branch families as the foundation. Lyca narrowed her eyes, and the cloud of suspicion started to form in her mind. Was it possible that our Huang family's history started hundreds of years ago? There are two well-known clans in this city. One is our Huang family, while the other is the Long family. Years ago, the Long family tried to enter into a marriage alliance with our Huang family. And that was when they betrayed us. It was as if a stone was lodged in her throat as she stared at her grandfather. Why did that story sound like what happened in her past life? Since then, the Huang and Long families have been each other's nemesis. The old man let out a sigh. Of course, this was nothing but a legend. Something that was passed from mouth to mouth. No one was able to verify this, as the written history of our city had long vanished. All records were burned during the great clan conflict that happened 500 years ago. That was one of the saddest parts of our history. The conflict killed many of our assassins, people who had abilities beyond human perception. Some clans were obliterated while some were weakened to the point of losing all of their influence. Of course, our Huang clan was not one of those clans. We survived, and so did the Long clan. The conflict killed a lot of people, giving birth to more hatred. Because of this, the feud between our Huang clan and Long clan continues to this day. The older man sighed before he continued. Even in business, the Long clan is trying to provoke us, creating conflict every now and then by sabotaging our businesses in the country and abroad. And to be honest, this is getting exhausting. Lyca's lips thinned. It seemed that this Huang family was more complicated than she originally thought. Now, to continue, the old man said. Our family is losing our influence. We are losing in this never-ending battle. Our black market influence is slowly decreasing, our mines have been raided and destroyed, and our experts have been poached by the Long family. His face turned serious, a tinge of anger visible in his time-worn eyes. They are trying to swallow our entire family. Grandfather, she looked at him. All I want is a peaceful life. If she knew that this Huang family had this kind of background, she would have declined that CEO position. She could only sigh inwardly. Why did her grandfather not tell her this before he declared her as his heir? As I said, you can have your peace if the Long family stops what they are trying to do now. Our Huang family only wants to focus on business, and we had not done anything to provoke the Long family for years now. However, this changed when the Long patriarch succumbed to illness 5 years ago. After his son, the current patriarch, became their clan leader, he started provoking us. Surprisingly, that man has gathered the support of many other families. Couldn't they just kill everyone and move on with their lives? Of course, she didn't utter such words to her grandfather. On the outside, her face was languid and relaxed. However, on the inside, Lyca was already thinking of ways to easily deal with this problem. Should she poison everyone in the Long family? Maybe put it in the water that they drink? Attacking them head-on sounded troublesome. Or she could just run away and disappear. Right now, running away to avoid conflict was really tempting. Seeing her blank expression, her grandfather let out another sigh. I know it is too much to understand. However, you are the only one who can lead the clan. Why? Why her? Lyca's cousins like Huang Shaoxian and her brother Huang Ziyan were both outstanding. Even her other cousin Huang Gong was also outstanding in both business management and martial arts. Now, the thoughts of building her own fortress using her family's money had completely disappeared from her mind. You don't need to know that for now, the old man said. All I wanted to tell you was that you cannot achieve your dream of having a peaceful life not if the Long family continues their current actions. Think about it. Lyca said nothing. Her grandfather was truly cunning. He first asked her what her goal was so he could adjust his story and create an obstacle for that goal. She lowered her head. While she wasn't sure about the story, she was certain that some of it was true while some was false. Still, her grandfather did make sense. If the Long family continued their plans, there was no way that Lyca would have her future lazy days. Shaking her head, Lyca turned towards her grandfather, silently asking if he was going to say more. She had been up for too long, it was already making her head ache. She needed her bed. Before you go, I want to know why you chose that kid Shinka. Surely, you knew that Li Xian's ability is much better than his? Is it? Lyca raised an eyebrow as she gave her grandfather a mysterious smile. Was Li Xian really better than Shinka? Judging from the calluses on their hands, it was the other way around. Seeing her knowing smile, old man Huang immediately decided to check everything about Shinka again. However, before he could even start setting this plan into motion, Lyca already declared. Don't investigate him. Why? When he saw that Lyca didn't have the intention to expound upon her words, old man Huang nodded. Since she didn't want him investigated, Lyca must have a plan on how to deal with Shinka. Alright. I understand. Since it's already like this, I will not intervene. Just do whatever you want. He waved his hand, gesturing for her to leave the office. Talking to someone like his granddaughter was truly troublesome, as he would be forced to think thoroughly about every word. It seemed that Lyca was indeed the right candidate. Slowly, his eyes shifted towards the frame on his shelves. He stared at the picture on the top shelf and sighed. After Lyca left her grandfather's office, Huang Li Duo decided to give them a tour of the tall building. Of course, a part of this was to show off his daughter, Huang Xiaoshuan's familiarity with the company. This was a clear sign that she had been to this building before, unlike the lazy and ignorant Lyca Huang, who had never shown any interest in managing their family business before. This facility is complete. We have a dojo for people who want to get some sweat out of their bodies, a gym, a firing range equipped with all the latest firearms technology in the world, a computer room, a research laboratory that is in charge of researching and developing weapons and high-tech tools. Huang Li Duo watched Lyca's blank expression as he gritted his teeth inwardly. Everything that he said could amaze anyone. Why was Lyca not showing interest in any of this? Was it possible that she did not understand his words? Do you want me to explain? He asked Lyca, who was looking at the lighting in the all-white corridor that they were walking through. Was she wondering about the lighting? Huang Li Duo couldn't stop himself from frowning. The only good thing about this tour was the fact that Lyca's father, Huang Shenghong, didn't accompany them. He had actually decided to go to the training room and watch the new batch of recruits train while leaving his daughter alone to tour the company with Huang Li Duo. That one. As expected, Lyca pointed at the white light that was used in the corridors. Does it have lasers? Her question surprised him. However, he quickly recovered and nodded. Yes, the lasers will be activated after working hours. Every corridor that leads to the research facility has a laser mechanism that automatically detects intruders. To make this place more secure, not many people knew about the lasers. Even Huang Xiaoxian, who accompanied him often since she was a child, did not know of this matter. However, that is confidential. I wonder how you knew that it has a laser mechanism. Did my younger brother tell you that? He raised an eyebrow. He was already planning to tell all this to his father. As the patriarch and director of the company, Huang Yi-tsong clearly told everyone who knew about the security mechanisms of this building not to tell anyone about them. This was one of their highly guarded secrets. How could Huang Shenghong tell Lyca about this confidential secret? Wasn't that a breach of their father's trust? I wouldn't ask if I knew. Lyca's words immediately made him frown. He opened his mouth to rebut her only to realize that he actually didn't know what to tell her. Lyca indeed was wondering if it had lasers. She was asking a fucking question. Embarrassed at his own assumptions, Huang Li Duo turned his head away and continued talking about other things inside the building instead. Just like the military, we recruit young people and train them. We do this because our elites accept difficult missions from private companies. These missions are the ones that must be kept a secret from everyone. If something goes wrong, the employer would not accept any responsibility for the mission. Of course, most of these youngsters are from different orphanages and do not have immediate families. This was common knowledge in the family. The Huang family was not only a security company, but it did all sorts of business, including assassinations, secret missions, and other confidential things that needed utmost secrecy. Once one of you becomes the new CEO, every mission taken will need your approval. You, along with some important people in the company, will decide which missions will be accepted. Pride laced his voice. Our Huang family does not accept missions without a 100% guarantee that we can do it. We pride ourselves in our 100% successful mission rating. He eyed Lyca and smirked when he saw her completely in a daze. What he didn't know was that despite Lyca's blank expression, she was already cursing and complaining inwardly. Deciding which missions to take. Meetings. Managing the recruits. All of these needed hard work. How could she act happy when she heard such stuff? Soon afterward, Lyca's mood turned sour. Her goal of living a happy and lazy life seemed to be farther away than what she originally thought. Seeing her downcast expression and slumped shoulders, Huang Li Duo and Huang Xiaoxian laughed inwardly. They immediately thought that Lyca was so shocked at all this that she turned gloomy. She must have realized that her knowledge about the company was too little. What an embarrassment. These thoughts made Huang Li Duo and Huang Xiaoxian beam. They eyed each other, their eyes glinting with mischief as they continued walking. Next we will go to the training grounds. Huang Li Duo hid the victorious smile from his face and plastered a worried look in its place. Lyca, I hope you won't be surprised by any of this. Our recruits tend to be so hot-blooded and fierce. Sometimes, these youths can't control themselves and will shed some blood while practicing. Lyca rolled her eyes inwardly. Was this man expecting her to puke from a little blood? She ignored Huang Li Duo's meaningful gaze towards his daughter and just pretended to continue staring at the lights. After a couple of minutes, the trio arrived at the training grounds, which was located on an underground floor of the building. This was a few floors above her grandfather's office. She then watched her uncle enter 2 passcodes, each longer than 12 characters so they could enter the training area. The codes change every week. You need to have them here, Huang Duo pointed at his temple. To be able to stay in this area. If you fail to memorize the code, then you won't be able to get in. He gave a smug smile. For a few seconds, he waited for her to show some sort of a reaction. In fact, he was only saying this to try and get a reaction from his niece. Each person could actually use their ID cards to enter this area. Lyca doesn't need to know any of that. Seeing Lyca's lazy gaze, Huang Duo couldn't help but sneer inwardly. She was really good at pretending. To his knowledge, Lyca had never visited this place before. It was only normal for her to feel amazed with all the technology in front of her. However, it seemed that just like her father, Huang Hong, Lyca's face was almost paralyzed. Her default blank appearance only made her look dumb. Huang Duo couldn't help but feel angry towards his father's unfair decision about this matter. Was the old man trying to run their company to the ground? Just what was he thinking? The electronic sound of the reinforced door being opened brought him back from his stupor. This time, the grand training grounds made Lyca's upper lips twitch. This underground facility was huge and bright. However, what surprised her was the fact that the training grounds in front of them really looked like a mini forest. She could see grass everywhere. There were also trees and... I can understand the surprise, Huang Shaoxian whispered. This is your first time here. But let me tell you this, those trees are not real. They are computer-generated. Lyca raised an eyebrow. Computer-generated trees? This was the first time that she had heard of that. This is like a huge computer. Everything here uses 8G technology that creates a lifelike environment. Depending on the type of training that the recruits are doing, we can create an extremely cold environment with fake snow and cold temperatures, desert-like environments with nothing but sand, and of course we can create dense forests like this, Huang Duo proudly rattled off. Someone, his voice echoed. Turn off the mechanisms. After a few seconds, the image in front of Lyca slowly blurred until it completely vanished, leaving nothing but steel walls. Surprisingly, she could see real soil with a few rocks. Still, the area was quite large and was divided by steel-like walls. We try to mimic real training grounds, thus, we use soil, Huang Duo continued. His eyes were glued on the middle-aged man approaching them. This is the person in charge of training the recruits. We also have another person in charge of the elites. These men have their own dietitians to ensure that they have perfectly balanced meals that are beneficial for their bodies. To your right, you can see the hospital. It's actually a clinic, but because of the number of people going in there every day, most people started calling it a hospital. Nothing severe, just some stitches or muscles they pull due to training. Lieutenant Colonel, sir, the middle-aged man immediately greeted Huang Duo. He stood ramrod straight a few feet away from his superior, eyes steely and unyielding. At ease. Huang Duo nodded. This is Major Yun Jishi, the one in charge of training. Major, you already know my daughter, Huang Shaoxian. And this is my niece Lyca Huang. He said as he pointed at Lyca. She just returned from abroad, he immediately lied. Even Huang Duo couldn't stomach the fact that Lyca had just stayed inside her house even if she had been back for almost a year now. From now on, these two will occasionally come in here to train with the recruits and elites. Huang Duo made a deliberate pause. Take me to the elites. Yes, sir. Major Yun immediately led them towards the training grounds. This training ground is about the size of 6 football fields and is divided into 4 parts. The first section is where we train recruits for the second stage. Huang Duo put his hands behind his back as he continued walking. He would look at Lyca from time to time, observing the changes in the latter's face. The first stage is for all the conditioning trainings and basic military skill, this is done outside. We have about 15 hectares for that purpose. The people who pass the training will then come here to learn our secret military skills and choose which weapon they would like to specialize in aside from firearms of course. Huang Duo continued, Major Yun, there's no need to show the equipment sections. Go directly to the assault section. He then eyed Lyca and started explaining. The assault section is a special unit where we teach human anatomy. In short, it is the part where we teach them how to kill using an individual's weakness. Special commando tactics as well as hand-to-hand combat are also taught there. This area is the largest among the 4 sections. Lyca nodded in response. To be honest, everything about this place sounded impressive. This was not something that she had seen in her previous life. Alright, we're here. Huang Duo walked inside and smiled. Oh. Look. Perfect timing. They are dissecting a corpse. I believe we should go and watch them. This will also serve as a lesson to the both of you. I believe the instructor is showing them some of the most vulnerable parts of the human body. He started beaming. What do you think, Lyca? Lyca looked at Huang Duo. As usual, her gaze didn't contain any emotion. However, on the inside, Lyca felt a little troubled. Why would they dissect corpses? Wasn't this a security company? The more information she had about this company, the more confused she became. Why did it sound like this was a secret facility that trained assassins? Wasn't this just like her previous life? Previous chapter. No. Lyca's words were already expected. However, this didn't damper Huang Duo's mood for his scheme. Huang Duo had been working in this company since he was 20. He knew how these people worked. He knew that the strong would never respect the weak. Once they see how weak Lyca was, they would never respect her as a leader. He pursed his lips as they continued walking. Of course, he was far from done. Since Lyca was already here, why not take advantage of it? When the group entered the commando and martial arts section, the soldiers inside immediately stood still, face stern, and greeted Huang Li Duo. "At ease, gentlemen," he said, and nodded towards Shenke and Li Xian, who were following them. Earlier, Huang Li Duo had made the two intentionally hear their conversation. He wanted them to know that Lyca was the future leader, and yet she was this weak. What was good in serving the weak? Today, two lieutenants are going to demonstrate a new technique that everyone will learn. This is a highly skilled technique that will focus on your agility instead of strength. He signaled both Lyca and his daughter to stand in with the soldiers. In the battle, the strongest one does not necessarily end up as the victor. Strength does not equate to victory. I have seen tall, big men with the strength of a bull get defeated by someone weaker but more agile. Today, these gentlemen will show you a certain footwork that will make you evade the strong attacks of your enemy. This footwork will also make your body faster, agile. But this is not for everyone. Huang Li Dup roamed his eyes to everyone. Usually, only the ones with lighter physique can use such moves. Which is why this is good for covert assassinations that require silent killings. Not only will this make you more agile, it will also make you scale in high walls and mount yourselves in trees. Again, not everyone has the talent to do this, but it will be very important for survival skills. Do you understand me? This time Lyca attentively listened to his words. These moves somehow made her interested. In her previous worlds, there were people who used magic and there were people who practiced Qinggong. This Qinggong was a martial art technique that would make the practitioner run faster and have lighter footsteps. People who practiced Qinggong could perform gravity-defying moves like gliding in water. She immediately wondered if this set of moves was the same as one that Qinggong warriors in her previous life used to practice. Yes, sir. Lyca calmly watched as Shenke and Li Xian, both tall men who were wearing a set of black uniforms, stood on the stage in front of everyone. They bowed at each other before performing a certain set of hand movement. Then the two started exchanging blows. Of course, Lyca's eyes immediately examined Shenke's movements. She frowned. The man was more agile and light compared to Li Xian. However, he was clearly not hitting Li Xian in the right spots. It was as if he was avoiding hitting his opponent. She narrowed her eyes. In her previous life, Lyca was not that strong compared to other people. That was because she never practiced strength training. Her martial arts skills were never intended to prolong the fight with extravagant and powerful movements. Her martial arts was aimed to kill as soon as she encountered the enemy. In her previous world, Lyca started studying acupuncture points since she was 3. Her training soon started when she turned 5. However, that training only involved training her eyes and senses. She needed to observe her opponents carefully through her eyes, nose, ears, and the sense of touch. She needed to immediately find their weakness and strike. The kill should be quick and silent. Then that was it. Mission completed. Seeing Shenke's powerful but useless moves made her wonder why a man capable of killing Li Xian with a mere punch was avoiding hitting the man. Was it possible that Shenke liked Li Xian? Lyca nodded her head. Soon after, she had lost interest in this fake fighting and started thinking about the recent drama that she watched while she was on her king-size bed, eating her grapes. Wasn't that a drama about two men in the same sect who started off as enemies but then became sworn brothers and then fell in love with each other? Was it possible that Shenke and Li Xian were like that too? Now that she thought of it, Shenke was really beautiful to a point that he started looking like a woman. His body was lean and tall. On the other hand, Li Xian was not that good-looking compared to Shenke, but the aura surrounding him was undeniably very manly. Looking at Li Xian was like staring at a sharp sword. The two almost seemed to have the same height, but Li Xian's body was obviously bigger. His muscles bulged under his black fit shirt. She looked at the two people again and realized that Li Xian was also not hitting Shenke on the right spots. It's like they don't want to injure each other. Her blank expression soon turned to glee as excitement flashed in her eyes. Of course, Lyca misunderstood everything. In her previous life, a practice or a demonstration like this was never fake. In fact, each practitioner needed to do their best to fatally injure the opponent to show that they deserve their position in the family. Everyone in their family treated a practice match like a real battle. Everything was always a life and death situation. Lyca was so used to such concepts that when she saw Li Xian and Shenke avoiding each other's vital points, she immediately thought that it was a staged battle aimed to impress the new recruit. That or Shenke and Li Xian were actually lovers who loved each other so much they couldn't bear to hurt each other even in a practice match. Li Xian wins. Huang Shaoxian was the first to shout the moment the match was over. Li Xian's kick hit Shenke's chest. She immediately looked at Lyca only for her to see the latter yawning, her eyes half closed. Huang Shaoxian immediately turned red in anger. She elbowed her. Lyca. Stop embarrassing the Huang family. She gritted her teeth. As a proud phoenix of the Huang family, Huang Shaoxian always walked with her head held high, her nose pointed at the skies. She was from the glamorous and talented Huang family. This was something that her father ingrained into her. Huang family was one of the top 2 families in Long City. They were brave yet smart, talented yet reliable, hardworking yet persevered. These were the core values of their family. How could someone like Lyca even call herself one of them? This was preposterous. As usual, Lyca just gave her a confused look. Right now, Huang Shaoxian was already wondering how did this woman who looked like a stupid fool earn her money that their grandfather was so proud of. Wasn't that just money? She lowered her head, fist clenched. Who knows if this fool actually used her body to earn all that money? The more Huang Shaoxian thought about it, the more she looked down on Lyca. Alright Shaoxian, I know you have already practiced some of the steps since you were a child. Why don't you demonstrate them to our new recruits? Just like his daughter, Huang Li Duo was a very proud man. This was also because Huang Li Duo was gifted with two smart and talented children. How could he refuse this opportunity to show off the gap in between her phoenix of a daughter and Lyca? Everyone, the lady next to my daughter is Lyca Huang. Some of you might not have heard her name before as she just arrived from abroad. She is the daughter of my third brother, Lieutenant Huang Shenghong, who worked with your drill master when you were training in body conditioning above. Lyca didn't even turn her head to look at everyone. She just continued staring at Shenke with her eyes half closed. The gesture was pretty simple, but everyone immediately noticed it. Shenke was indeed very good looking. Was it possible that one of the Huang family members had taken a fancy to the young man? Alright father. Huang Shaoxian immediately nodded, her face was stern and serious. Since Lyca was showing how stupid she was, Huang Shaoxian had decided to show how excellent she truly was. I call this movement, 36 light technique. She looked at everyone. Please watch carefully. Huang Shaoxian immediately started bending her body, like a skilled gymnast as she performed a series of stunts that involved tumbling, showing off her balance, strength and flexibility. Then she made a deliberate pause and looked at everyone. I need someone to act as my sparring partner. Of course, she already knew who she would be picking. Cousin Lyca. Will you please? No. Lyca's answer was enough to make her speechless. Everyone around them immediately looked at Lyca, then to Huang Li Duo and Huang Shaoxian. How could Lyca refuse a challenge? Of course, Lyca couldn't care less about these people's thoughts. She was already sleepy, hungry, and tired. If she decides to fight, who knows what her hungry self would do. It's alright, Shaoxian just chose someone else. Huang Li Duo said. Lyca just arrived from abroad. She also didn't grow up around our recruits. It is only natural for her to feel fear and get intimidated by your performance. Lyca fought the urge to roll her eyes. Performance? A circus performance? I want to go. She eyed her uncle. Home. Of course, she didn't miss the disgust coming from the new recruits. However, she was really hungry to even think about people she doesn't know. Well then. Cousin, Huang Shaoxian interrupted her father. She walked towards Lyca. As the younger generation of Huang family, I believe it is best that we show the new recruits our formidable talents. After all, we will soon take over the company. I believe my younger cousin is right. A man's voice suddenly came from behind the recruits. Everyone turned their heads, except Lyca. The voice was already familiar to her. Wasn't this the son of her eldest aunt Huang Ying? The young master of the Zhang family, Zhang Jiu. The man walked in front of the recruit. He eyed Lyca for a few seconds before he bowed at his uncle Huang Li Duo. The younger generation of the Huang family is the future of this company. He uttered. Despite being a part of the Zhang family, Zhang Jiu liked to spend his time in this training facility to train his body. He would join the training of some elites and loved to show off his skills in handling guns. Young cousin Lyca, please feel free to show us your formidable skills. This is not some socialite meeting where people with the most grace and elegance are praised. Treat this as a real battleground. Hearing Zhang Jiu's words, Huang Xiaoshuan's pride bloated. She eyed Lyca. Cousin, the sudden smile on Lyca's face made her forget what she was about to say. She opened her mouth to say something else. Next time she knew Lyca was no longer standing a few feet away from her. Thud. Everyone widened their eyes when they noticed Huang Shaoxian sprawled on the floor, unconscious. Everything happened too quick that not many people saw what transpired before their eyes. Everyone took a step back out of instinct, as if a predator just attacked one of their own. The next time they knew, Lyca was already standing in front of Zhang Jiu, beaming, like a predator who just found her prey. Lyca, what have you done? Huang Li Duo's voice interrupted the tense environment. He immediately ran towards her daughter, panic can be seen in his eyes. Battleground. Lyca's voice was melodious. She looked at the shocked expression of her older cousin Zhang Jiu. On the battleground, one would not wait for their enemy to tell them that they were ready for them to start the fight. Right, cousin? Battleground. One word was enough to stop Zhang Jiu's mind from functioning. He stared at her smile as a chill ran down his spine. What was happening? Until now, he wasn't able to understand what had gone down. He didn't see Lyca move, all he saw was Huang Shaoxian falling on the ground like a doll whose strings were severed. And yet, her word battleground was enough for him to understand the reason behind her actions. In front of an enemy, talking was useless. It was better to act and show how formidable you are in one move. You. I am tired. Lyca withdrew her gaze. Once again, her face turned blank, no sign of the chilling appearance that she had earlier could be seen in her eyes. What was happening? Even Huang Li Duo was confused. Lyca. Explain yourself now. What did you do to? Before Huang Li Duo could complete his sentence, his daughter stirred and opened her eyes. Confusion could be seen in Huang Xiaoshuan's eyes as she looked at her father. Did something happen? Father, she asked. Until now, Huang Shaoxian didn't have any idea that Lyca had already attacked her and made her unconscious in a single move. She looked at her father's anger as she wondered why she was in her father's arms. Father, I am fine. She immediately noticed that her father's gaze was glued at Lyca. Father. Li Xian, take her to the infirmary. Have the doctors thoroughly check her and see if she injured something. He feared that his daughter actually suffered an internal bleeding. While most of the people here didn't see the attack coming, Huang Li Duo saw Lyca use her finger to attack something in his daughter's neck. It was too quick that he wasn't sure what part of his daughter's neck was hit. The next thing that he saw was Huang Shaoxian fainting from that attack. Too quick. It was just too quick that he could not understand what had happened. Why would Lyca attack his daughter? However, Lyca's one word made him understand her intention. Zhang Jiao said to treat this as a battleground. And treat it as such she did. In a fight, there was no place for permission and mercy. No hesitation or doubts. It was a life or death situation. Father. Just follow Li Xian. He stood and helped his daughter up. Huang Li Duo might be extremely prideful and arrogant, but he would always prioritize his children first. He gave Huang Shaoxian a gentle look before he patted her shoulder, as if assuring her that everything would be fine. Then he turned towards Lyca, who was not even looking at him but was looking at Zhang Jiao instead. Lyca. He started, his eyes glanced through Lyca's thin arms and small waist. Clearly, she never practiced any strength training and would be weak against someone double her size. However, that attack that she did was too quick and merciless. If she faced someone bigger than her, even Huang Li Duo won't be able to tell which one will win. Explain yourself. Battlefield. Lyca turned her attention towards Huang Li Duo. She was honestly too lazy to explain. Since these people didn't understand her intention, then she wouldn't waste her saliva explaining herself to stupid people. She lazily looked at Huang Li Duo before she looked at Shenke. Seeing the latter was already staring at her, Lyca suddenly winked at him. She winked at Shenke. This cemented their assumption that this lady Huang is indeed infatuated with Shenke. Talk properly. Huang Li Duo said, his voice was not loud yet it contained the authority that he held in this training ground. Why did you hurt her when she was unprepared? You took her by surprise and fatally wounded her. Lyca raised an eyebrow. Is this old man serious? She's alive, isn't she? If she intended to fatally hurt Huang Shaoxian, she would probably be dead by now. You, of course, Huang Li Duo couldn't rebut her words. His daughter was indeed alive and well. She was able to walk on her own, her face is not pale, her eyes were also clear and bright. Still. That attack was uncalled for. Formidable talents. Lyca said. What you call formidable is called gymnastics. What I call formidable is enough to kill you in 3 seconds. She shook her head. She immediately regretted her words. She spoke too much. It seems that all energy in her body was about to run out. She seriously needed her sleep. Who would have thought that Lyca would be thinking about sleeping in the middle of a tense atmosphere like this? Cousin, what you did was indeed brilliant, but it was far too dangerous. Shaoxian is a weak little girl. How could you attack her and make her faint? Zhang Jiao chimed in. Your attack was too crafty, but it was dirty to surprise your opponent like that. Lyca didn't respond. She scoffed and gave him a mocking smirk. Dirty? Crafty? These people were clueless about what a battlefield is. Of course, she chose to keep her words to herself and waited for her uncle to say something. Lyca knew that despite Huang Li Duo's arrogance, the man was loyal to her grandfather. He was loyal to the Huang family. And that was one of the reasons why he was still standing there in front of Lyca. But that didn't mean she would just let this man trample her and attempt to hurt her. She had been silent for too long that these people thought they could actually scheme against her. How pitiful. If she was not too lazy to act, this Huang Li Duo and even Zhang Jiao would have also lost their consciousness by now. After all, she was always ruthless to people who were planning to hurt her. Lyca's mind was actually pretty simple. She would let these people talk to her as if she is a nuisance. But she won't let them touch a strand of her hair. Lyca intentionally hurt Huang Shaoxian to establish this fact. She wanted Huang Li Duo and Zhang Jiao to understand that she was not someone that they would want to provoke. Huang Li Duo's face turned dark. How could he let this woman continue to disrespect him in front of everyone? Let's go to the director's office. He looked at Shenke. Come with us. You will act as a witness. When Lyca heard this, her mood immediately became worse. Why did she need to talk to her grandfather? She needed to rest. She lowered her gaze, hiding the irritation that she felt inside. She needed to finish this as quickly as possible. Of course, Lyca said nothing as she followed her uncle back to her grandfather's office. She kept her head lowered, hiding the anger in her eyes. In her previous life, the heir did not need to explain why she killed someone. It seems that the rules of this world were indeed different. She glanced at her uncle's dark face and immediately realized that this Huang Li Duo and his daughter Huang Shaoxian were so alike. They cannot solve the matter on their own and would prefer to involve other people. This should be the reason why old man Huang didn't choose this man to lead the company. After all, he was a bit stupid and was too arrogant. Cousin, where did you learn that move? She heard Zhang Jiao utter. He was walking next to her. Now that I think about it, that move is not one of the techniques that we have in the Huang family. Are you secretly learning some moves like that to surprise everyone? Also, the movement of your feet was too light and agile. Does this mean you are secretly practicing our light footsteps technique? Say, who is your master? Can you introduce me to your master? How about this, why don't we fight, and if I win you will introduce me to your master? I was thinking. A chatterbox. Lyca didn't know if she should laugh or cry at Zhang Jiao's changes. Of course, she immediately made a mental note to avoid this person in the future. Clearly, this Zhang Jiao loved to fight. Now that he saw Lyca's ability, all the disgust that he felt earlier vanished like smoke in the air. He immediately felt the need to challenge his younger cousin. No. Lyca's words interrupted his 3-minute chatter. What do you mean no? No as in you won't introduce me to your master? Or no, you won't fight with me? Are you saying that you are practicing a different technique? Or are you saying that you didn't secretly learn it? Oh. You want to keep your moves a secret? That is indeed very reasonable. You can't just teach someone a secret technique like that. Thus, I wanted you to introduce me to your master and… Lyca was truly speechless. How could someone talk so much? Just hearing him talk for a few minutes was already making her head ache. Was this person for real? Lyca decided to ignore her sense of hearing and continued walking towards her grandfather's office. After a few minutes of identification, they finally arrived inside the office. Surprisingly, Li Xian, Huang Shaoxian and even Lyca's father Huang Hong were already in the office. Father. Huang Li Duo immediately started narrating what happened and would occasionally ask Shenke and Li Xian to corroborate his story. I believe it is only right to punish her for attacking Huang Shaoxian with the intent to kill her. Huang Hong's snort followed his older brother's words. He looked at his own daughter, pride brimming in his eyes before sending a gaze full of ridicule to Huang Li Duo. As Lyca's father, Hong was aware what kind of woman his daughter was. However, he was not the type of person who loves boasting. Moreover, Lyca had always been clear that she did not want to attract any attention to herself. His daughter never showed interest in the family business and he was not planning to force her something she does not like. All he wanted was for her to live a happy life. However, these people seemed to think that Lyca was a pushover. He sneered inwardly. We already watched the video, elder brother. He said. He knew that Huang Li Duo would try something like this. So, he immediately went back to his father's office to warn him about it. In the end, old man Huang watched everything from the camera in the training grounds. We also know why she acted that way. Huang Hong continued. He eyed his daughter's sleepy eyes. Seeing this, he immediately knew what his daughter was thinking right now. Sleep. As usual, Lyca wanted her sleep. She must have been really irritated and angry inwardly. Hong forced himself not to laugh at his daughter's expression and looked at his brother instead. This man was really scheming. Intent to kill? Old man Huang spoke. If Lyca wanted to kill Shaoxian, do you think she would wake up in a matter of minutes? He raised an eyebrow. The old man already realized his mistake of agreeing to this challenge. He should have just stood on his ground and declared Lyca the heiress. However, it was too late. He could already see the effects of what he did. A sigh left his lips. The white-haired heir was always the most capable one. That was something that he himself knew from his experience. But this was a secret that only the patriarch should know. He could not let the other family know the Huang family's secret. Father. Huang Li Duo's face darkened. The old man really favored Lyca. However, I do agree. That attack was indeed uncalled for. The old man suddenly said. Right now, he understood some of the things that his granddaughter loved. Someone who wants a lazy and casual life would not want to stay in this place for too long. That's why I will punish Lyca a month of staying in her family's mansion. You will have to skip a few days of classes, but that should not be a problem. Grounded? Lyca asked. She couldn't hide the stars in her eyes. Yes. You are grounded. The old man sighed. As expected, Lyca immediately lowered her head, hiding the happiness that she felt inside. The old man didn't know if he would laugh or cry. This granddaughter of his was really unique. Young lady, Mr. Shen is waiting for you downstairs. Ian, one of Lyca's beloved assistants, said. She continued combing Lyca's long hair. For more than 30 minutes now. The other servant said that he seemed irritated. Is he standing? Lyca asked. It had been a week since her punishment started and this was the first time Shenke had come to see her, unannounced. It was 9 in the morning. Who visits at that time like this without even telling her in advance? Lyca was still sleeping when he arrived. She needed time to prepare. Yes, young lady. He refused to sit. His fault. Lyca said. Bun. She said. Getting ready with such long hair was so annoying. However, her mother loved her hair so much and she loved to braid it from time to time. Because of this, Lyca decided not to cut her hair, at least not now. In this world, Lyca had grown attached to the two people who spoiled her too much. Her parents. In her previous life, her parents were so focused on their own jobs that she had grown closer to her maternal family, the family who adopted her when she lost her mother and father. However, her parents in this world were really different than the ones she previously had. They were caring and loving. They were rich and loved to buy her things. And most importantly, her parents are both good cooks. How could such people exist in this world? Sometimes Lyca couldn't help but wonder if she was already in heaven. Of course, she knew that was very unlikely as she was a sinner. Surely, the sin she had committed was enough for her to rot in hell. Sadly, her mother was not here to help her braid her thigh-length hair. So she settled for a bun on top of her hair instead. At least it would be quicker that way. She glanced at Ian, who was happily doing her hair into a messy bun that she liked the most. One word and Ian already understood her intention. This is why she loved this smart servant the most. After a few more minutes, Lyca put on light makeup to complement her pale yellow dress that emphasized her jade-like pale skin. She especially made herself more beautiful when she knew that she would see the beautiful man Shinka. After all, she couldn't let people think the man was even more beautiful than the owner of the house. Lyca chuckled at her own thoughts. "Leave," she uttered. Ian immediately complied. Seeing her servant gone, the smiling face that she had earlier disappeared. She then made sure that the dagger in her legs was perfectly hidden. She then opened her jewelry box and chose a set of necklace equipped with anti-poison and a bracelet with her personalized 12 needles. Lyca was not planning to lower her guard in front of a man who was hiding his true strength. After making sure that she looked pleasing enough, Lyca left her room and went to the back garden where Shinka was already waiting for almost an hour now. The back area of the mansion had a small garden and a swimming pool which Lyca loved. Of course, she doesn't swim, it would be too tiring. Instead, she asked her father to make an outdoor space where she could languidly lie and spend her afternoons while reading a book or sleeping. The area was of course, covered from the heat of the sun. It is well equipped with LED lights that she wanted to have in case she wanted to eat her dinner in this space. Each piece of furnishings in this patio was requested by Lyca as they made her life easier while staying in this space. "Miss Huang." Shinka immediately greeted her when he saw her. No smile nor anger could be seen in his eyes. "Sit." She took a seat at the modular white sofa that she wanted as she could easily turn it into a small bed. "Eat with me." She eyed the 3 servants that were coming with plates and glasses in hand. "Breakfast." She was really hungry, ah. Surprisingly, Shinka took a seat without saying anything. "Thank you, Miss Huang, but I already finished my breakfast." "Lyca." She corrected him. Polite people made her uncomfortable. She couldn't trust people who were overly polite or courteous. For some reason, she thought that they were scheming against her. Of course, this intuition was a part of her past life. Something that she couldn't just abandon. "I am here to talk about the arrangement of the director. He said I needed to train you. I would like to live with me," Lyca immediately said. "Excuse me?" A frown appeared in his stern face. "Live with her? What is that supposed to mean?" "Live with me," Lyca said. She knew that he had heard her clearly the first time. However, Lyca was too lazy to expound her simple words. So she repeated her words instead. "Live with me." "Miss Hu, Lyca, I don't understand. You want me to live with you? In this mansion?" "Apartment," Lyca said. Once she started going to school, she was not going to stay in this mansion anymore. One was because it was part of the deal and second is because this was far from the school that they were going to attend. It is not very ideal at all. But that, confused, Shinka didn't continue his words. He stared at the woman's beautiful face, wondering if she was serious. Why would she want him to live with her? He remembered how Li Xian started teasing him about being liked by Lyca. However, he never put it in his head. Could it be that Lyca was one of those women who loves chasing men that didn't like them? The thought immediately made him tense. Was he supposed to accept this offer? "Lyca, I don't think this is proper. A man and a woman living in one space is just." Amused, Lyca smiled. How could she not understand his meaning? Just what? "Inappropriate, Miss Huang. It's inappropriate." Shinka forced himself to maintain a straight face. "It's not." She immediately responded as she started eating her pancakes. "No combat training. I want weapons." "You wanted me to train you in handling weapons?" She nodded. This man was a fast learner. First of all, she did not want to hurt herself in training various martial arts. Moreover, doing this would also affect the technique that she already knew. Second, Lyca chose weapons training as she wanted to familiarize herself in different types of weapons aside from her dagger and needles. Lyca was also planning to create a new weapon using the current technology that the company had. This weapon would be as light as her needles and as fast as her daggers. However, she was planning to create something that activates without using too much effort. The goal was always to make her life easier and smoother. No need to think about the unnecessary things. "What kind of weapon?" "Everything." Shinka stared at her for a few seconds. He thought back to the display he saw the other week. He was not very familiar with her moves, but because of the chi in his body, he was able to see her actions clearly. Shinka had his suspicions, but he had decided not to tell anyone about it. But that movement was clearly an indicator that this miss was an expert that could kill anyone if she wanted to. Was that the reason why she wanted to be trained in weapons instead? Shinka was always a man who took his job seriously. He frowned and looked at Lyca, who had just finished eating her pancake and was now getting herself a new one. "The director told me to train you in everything that includes martial arts too. I can train you in both martial arts and weapon handling. I can also teach you battle strategies." To him, Old Man Huang's words were absolute. Since Old Man Huang wanted him to train this little girl, then he would train her. "No." Lyca shook her head. She finished another pancake before she added, "Honey." She held her hand in front of him. "Oh." Shinka immediately passed her the honey. Then he waited for her to say something. Sadly, Lyca never spoke again. Instead, she finished another batch of pancakes and started eating the greasy fried chicken. It was followed by another meat and vegetable salad before finally eating some fruits and a cake. 40 minutes and 2 seconds. Shinka had to count. He couldn't help it. His gaze turned towards her skinny body, her small face, her white hair, her weak arms. Then he asked himself, where did all the food she ate go to? He couldn't help but wonder. However, when he thought about her having an eating disorder, his thoughts soon became full of pity. As expected, no one was born perfect. "I'm done," Lyca said as she dabbed the napkin on her lips. She eyed Shunka, who had been silent now. "Weapons? As per instructed by the director, I will teach you both weapons and martial arts," he said sternly. "You will live with me?" she asked. "No. I am not living with you." Lyca's beautiful eyes squinted. Did he refuse because of his secret? Live with me. This time it wasn't a question but an order. This man would live in her apartment. After all, he would be close to her and her family. How could he allow this Shunka to hurt her mother and father in the future? She needed to keep this man next to her all the time. "I'm not asking." She rose from her seat. "Follow," she said. Without any other words, Shunka followed her into the mansion. What he saw inside immediately surprised him. Contrary to Shunka's expectations, Huang Hong's mansion actually looked cozy and warm. This was the exact opposite of Huang Liduo's mansion that screamed luxury. This place was inviting and not intimidating. The interior of the mansion had warm colors, tiled floors and a beautiful chandelier. Unlike the other Huang family's mansion that he had visited, Shunka felt that every nook and cranny of this place had been used. He looked at the woman who was walking in front of him as he started to wonder where she was taking him. However, this question was soon answered when they walked inside a gym-like space with a heavy punching bag and kicking bags, punching mitts and a floor completely protected by gray martial art mats. Now that he thought about it, Lyca's father, Colonel Huang Hong, was an expert in both karate, aikido and judo. This place should belong to Huang Hong. Again, his eyes darted towards Lyca's delicate back. He couldn't help but wonder if she learned that weird martial art that she used from her father. Could it be some sort of a family secret? But judging from Huang Liduo's reaction, that was not the case. It was pretty obvious that the old man was surprised by Lyca's actions too. "We're here." Shunka looked at the separate space that they were in. It was half the size of the gym, but this one did not have any equipment at all. It was a room that reminded him of a recording studio with its sound-proofed walls. He looked at her and waited for her to speak. Of course, Lyca returned his gaze. She then smiled at him. She hated explaining. Thus, she found a way to make him understand that she doesn't need any martial arts training. "Fight me," she said. For a lazy person like her, fighting was like a shortcut out of everything. Surely, this would make Shunka understand her point. "Excuse me?" Shunka was flabbergasted. What was she talking about? "You want me to fight you?" Lyca nodded in response. At least this Shunka was smart. He didn't need someone else to translate her words anymore. Shunka eyed her dress. Then his gaze darted towards her face. Clearly, she was not wearing anything remotely appropriate for a fight. Then why would she challenge him? Was this a test of sorts? Shunka frowned at the thought. Was this young lady testing him? "I'm sorry, but," he wasn't able to complete his words when Lyca suddenly walked towards one of the walls and pressed something, making the flat walls reveal different kinds of weapons. Daggers, fighting knives, swords, axes, spears. Wait, why did she have a peculiar collection of weapons? Was she, however, before he could say anything, Huang Hong's laughter echoed inside. Lyca, her father smiled at her. He eyed the variety of weapons in front of his daughter and immediately understood what happened. He immediately approached her. "Let's not do it this time. Your mother will prepare some pizza for you. How about I talk to him?" "Pizza?" Of course, Lyca's attention was completely diverted at the mention of pizza. She immediately nodded and said, "I want to live with him." Before leaving the room with no explanation. Shunka didn't understand what was going on. Pizza? A pizza was able to change her mind in a matter of seconds? He let out a sigh of relief. "Mr. Shen." Huang Hong gave the young man a wry smile. "Please follow me to my office." "Yes, sir." It didn't take too long for the two to reach Huang Hong's office. "When I received a call that you had come here, I had to immediately leave my job to come here." He gave him a stern look. "My daughter has an extremely peculiar way of dealing with things. I was afraid that she would ask you to fight with her. I guess my suspicions were well founded." For some reason, Lyca hated talking and tried to settle every argument with her silencing the opponent to prove her point. Of course, the only people that knew of this were the servants, her sparring partner Ian and her parents. Simple yet brutal. That was Lyca Huang. Her father knew that some people might misunderstand this daughter of his in the future. "My daughter is not a simple person. That's all you need to know. However, to her, this challenge that my father gave her is nothing but a simple task." But Huang Hong looked at his family portrait that was framed on top of his table. "I am not here to talk to you about that." Hong had always been confident that Lyca would win this competition. "I am here for a request." "Request?" "I want you to teach her social skills instead." What kind of request was this? Shunka immediately thought about Lyca's actions earlier. "Sir, she wanted me to teach her weapons." "That? Guns." Huang Hong explained. "My daughter is proficient in using the weapons that you saw earlier. Daggers, swords, and spears. She can be considered an expert in all those weapons. However, she has always hated guns and thinks they are too loud." Huang Hong knew that Lyca didn't explain all this to Shunka. Therefore, he immediately decided to clear out all the doubts in the young man's head. Hearing this, Shunka turned silent. The young lady didn't say anything about this at all and just asked him for a fight. How was he supposed to know these things without her father's explanation? Earlier, he was honestly thinking that Lyca wanted him to choose a weapon for the fight. If she had just explained herself better then. Please don't blame my daughter. Huang Shenghong smiled. I spoiled her too much. His gaze turned gentle. She always hated talking to people since she was young. She is somewhat lazy and refused to socialize with others. She was very silent and just liked to observe her surroundings. I didn't realize when she started to say less and less, but you should begin getting used to it now. So should he start practicing his skill at guessing the actions of others? Shunka frowned inwardly. How was he supposed to train someone who was not even willing to talk to him? His indifference towards this young lady had just been stained with a little dislike. As someone who had worked hard since he was young, how could he tolerate someone who was lazy to the point of cutting off her sentences? He snorted inwardly. Do you understand me, son? Huang Shenghong asked. He let out a sigh inwardly. He completely understood Shunka's thoughts right now. Even he, as Lyca's father, understood how difficult it was to communicate with his daughter. However, unlike everyone else, Lyca would actually talk to her parents like a normal human being. Who knows if Lyca would soon talk to Shunka like that too? Maybe they needed to be close for that to happen. Thus I would like to request that you live with her for the time being. This challenge is extremely dangerous. Some people will begin scheming against her and might even send assassins. I need someone close to her all the time. Would you be able to do this task for me? So the weapons. Naturally, you will help her while living with her. Everything will be provided so you don't have to worry about this matter. And the social skills. Well, according to my calculations, you have about a 10% chance in succeeding. So I am not very hopeful about this. For the first time, Huang Shenghong, the brute colonel who helped train recruits, gave an embarrassed smile. Was his daughter really this peculiar? But most importantly, did he even have a choice to decline? Slowly, his gaze turned serious. Yes, sir. Good, then about the school that you two will enter. Lyca doesn't know this yet, but it is not the usual school that people in college will attend. Shunka's face turned stern as he continued to listen to Huang Shenghong's words. Moreover, Shenghong also explained to him the changes in the challenge. The old man actually decided to change it into a 6-month challenge to match the school's special requirement. This challenge was also submitted to the special school of elite and was just waiting for approval. Wasn't this just a bit too extravagant for a simple challenge? Previous chapter. When Lyca heard the changes that her father mentioned, her face immediately turned dark. The agreed time was 1 month from now. Why did the old man extend it to 6 months? Just what kind of school was the long-founding school of elite? And why was it that Lyca couldn't find it on the internet? When Lyca heard her father's explanation about the matter, her face turned even darker. Long-founding school of elite. It was actually a special school of elite that was for those who were 19 and above. This was a school that did not accept foreigners and was only open for the members of the founding families of the country. These were the families that had been rich since the country had been founded. I believe this is Huang Li Duo's another scheme. After what happened last time, he must have realized that Huang Shaoxian cannot beat you. Thus, he decided to find ways to extend this challenge. I'm afraid that Huang Shenghong didn't continue his words. Giving Huang Li Duo more time would also give him the opportunity to try and assassinate Lyca. How could he allow such things to happen? This school, Lyca said after a few minutes of silence. They only have 6 months worth of school a year. And they do an overall competition at the end of each school year. Is it for influence? This time, Shenhong nodded. The thought of this school was enough to make his face turn ugly. He could not really hide this matter from his own daughter. Well, it's not like he could hide it when Lyca was actually a very smart woman. Normally, the Huang family did not join the struggle with the other families to prove who had more powerful heirs. However, this time was different. The Huang family had been losing their influence. With the current schemes that the Long family were up to, the Huang family who had avoided all those schemes needed to let everyone know that they cannot be bullied. Therefore, they needed to win this competition. However, Huang Shenghong did not want to see his daughter get hurt. When he heard his father and Huang Li Duo tell him about this matter, his initial reaction was anger. This competition was known to cripple both the physical and psychological abilities of many students. Why would he allow his daughter to risk her life for something like that? Huang Shenghong immediately disagreed. Because of this, his father was forced to inform them about the current pitiful state of the Huang household. Then the old man actually begged him to reconsider his decision. The thing was, Huang Shenghong was never the type of father who would force something onto his daughter. Thus, he was here to talk to her about this matter. If Lyca decided to refuse, then no one would be able to force her into anything. And this is because of the current state of our Huang family? Lyca asked as she massaged her temple. This was such a headache. With this Long family trying to ruin her Huang family, her dream of living a lazy life was going to be difficult. She really needed to stabilize this Huang family first before she could live her dream life. She thought of all the things that she needed to do. First was to determine who Shunke was and what his real purpose was in hiding his strength. Second, she needed to defeat Huang Shaoxian, which was really easy. Third, she needed to create something that could protect her in case of emergencies. She was already planning to create or invent something helpful for her ultimate dream. Fourth, she needed to build a fortress for her mother and father and her to live peacefully for the rest of her life. This plan needed money, so she was already planning to sell some of her inventions in the future. Fifth was to retire and just die from pure boredom. With this school's appearance, Lyca would be forced to add another task to her already long list of tasks. Sixth, defeat every other elite and reinforce the influence of the Huang family. All this everything sounded so tiresome, Lyca could already feel her limbs hurting in advance. She let out a long sigh before she finished the last slice of her pizza that her mother had especially made for her. "Father," she said while dabbing a napkin in her lips. "Do you trust me?" she asked as she met his concerned gaze. Trust was very important, and right now, Lyca only trusted her mother and father at the moment. She needed to know if these two would support her in her goal of living a carefree life. "Of course I do. I would trust you with my life," he answered without batting an eyelid. "Then good," Lyca said as she rose from her seat. "Accept this arrangement. I only want one thing in return. Weapons? Tech? Research? Money? We will provide everything for you to succeed." He smiled, confidence laced his tone. However, Lyca only shook her head in response. She pursed her lips and stared at her father for a few seconds. "I want to live with Shenke." You, slowly Huang Hang's face turned dark. Even he, a male, could say that Shenke had excellent looks. He immediately remembered the scene where Lyca held Shenke's hands. His face turned darker. Was it possible that you? Seeing her father's dark face, Lyca laughed. "Shenke and Lycian are lovers, father. In the future, stop thinking about these things. I don't want to become a third party." Lovers? Huang Hang didn't know if he was supposed to laugh or cry at his daughter's words. However, on the outside, he forced himself to maintain a stern expression. What was this daughter of his talking about? Since when did Shenke and Lycian turn lovers? "All right. I will leave and sleep," Lyca said before leaving. She didn't need to hear her father's reaction, as both of them knew that she wasn't really going to sleep. Surely, the fact about Lycian and Shenke surprised her father so much to the point of being speechless. Lyca went to her room and immediately went to the secret laboratory that her father asked his people to make for her. Looking at the various chemicals inside her laboratory, Lyca chose something that was full of colored green liquid, then another one with a blue one. After a few minutes of mixing some stuff, a satisfied expression slowly blossomed in her face. If that Shenke was indeed planning against her family, she would not hesitate to use this liquid to make him suffer. A sinister laugh escaped her lips. After watching the solvent for a few more minutes, Lyca immediately started crystallizing it. In case Shenke won't drink the poison, Lyca was already planning to make him swallow it instead. Then she let out another sinister laughter. This poison was designed to mess up Shenke's reproductive system. Just the thought of it made her giggle. After a few minutes, Lyca opened her computer and started thinking of this new poison's name. Gentle Size. A solvent that will melt men's reproductive organs in a matter of days. Such a silly name for a solvent that would create problems for men. Should she make someone drink this tablet as a sort of way to test its capabilities? Lyca fell into another dilemma. Now that she thought about it, all of her poisons were untested, as she couldn't really ask people to drink it. That would be problematic and would only attract attention. Lyca also hated experimenting with animals, as she found them cute and therefore couldn't hurt them. If this continued, she couldn't make antidotes for these poisons, as she had no way of knowing the extent of its effects. She needed to test it on people. Lyca raised an eyebrow as it hit her. The Long family. The Huang family's enemies. Should she find the time to test her newly created poisons against those people? Slowly, a smile slithered onto her face. Long founding school of elites. Wasn't that a place where the elites and talented go to? Meaning, these people should be experts in martial arts and geniuses? An idea came to her mind. Maybe going to this school was not such a bad thing after all. Days passed. Soon, the month of being grounded finally ended. Of course, this was not a very good thing for Lyca. She wanted to stay inside her house forever. Yet, she knew this was nothing but her wishful thinking. A week from now, you and Shenke will go to the Long founding school of elites. Inside the school a dormitory exists, but you can choose to stay in an apartment inside the campus. Most of the students would actually prefer apartments than the dormitory, as they hate sharing rooms. Of course, there were also people who wanted to stay with someone and build their influence. Old Man Huang said as his gaze traveled towards Lyca and Shenke. Then he looked at Huang Shaoxian and said. "Since you refuse to live with Lycian, I have set up a... I want to live in the dormitories." Huang Shaoxian interrupted her grandfather's words. She had decided. After all, everyone in this school wanted to establish their influence and name in the country. Want to live in the dormitories? Huang Shaoxian interrupted her grandfather's words. She had decided to live in a dormitory, as this would broaden her network. It would allow her to socialize with more people, not just in Long City but also throughout the whole country. She was sure that most people would also choose this method to build some friendships too. After all, everyone in this school wanted to establish their influence and name in the country. Question. Lyca suddenly raised her hand. Can we bring things to the school? Things? If you mean weapons, no. You are not allowed to bring destructive weapons inside the school. I believe people are still allowed to carry defensive weapons. Daggers, for example, are quite common, as these people have some daggers given to them by their ancestors. Lyca was confused. Just what kind of school was this? For some reason, this reminded her of a somewhat powerful sect that trained all future heirs. Why did a school like this exist in this world? That's all for now. I will personally send you to the school 1 week from now. You can do whatever you want. You can use this time to prepare yourself. This is an important battle not just for both of you but for the whole Huang family's future. Yes, grandfather. Huang Shaoxian nodded. Right now, her haughty appearance was no longer there. After what happened a few weeks ago, Shaoxian realized something big. She had underestimated her opponent. Since her father informed her about Lyca's achievement, she had already looked down on her and thought that she was nothing but a clown who used her money to make those formulas. It seems that she was wrong. So wrong. When Huang Shaoxian saw the video of how Lyca struck her, making her faint in less than 2 seconds, she realized that this cousin of hers was hiding her strength. She wasn't sure why Lyca did it, but all she knew was the fact that this Lyca could kill her if she wasn't more careful in the future. This woman was actually so ruthless and cunning. Moreover, Lyca was so good at acting like a stupid sheep when in fact she was a fox. However, this didn't mean that she would easily give up. In fact, she already had a plan in mind. She would gather all the influence that she could get and learn everything in 6 months. She would work hard and do everything she could to defeat this Lyca Huang. What do you all think of the new cover? Did you notice her dagger? Lyca was given a week to prepare before the start of her classes. Because of this, Lyca had decided to gather more information about this school. She had been cooped up in her room for a long time that her information about the family surrounding the Huang family had been lacking. So your dream of having a lazy life is clearly not happening? Lyca's cousin Tang Rui laughed. I told you that is clearly impossible. As a 24-year-old woman who was in the military, Tang Rui had clear and bright eyes. Coupled with her dark hair that was always tied into a tight bun and beautiful long lashes, she could be considered a beautiful woman. On the outside, she was known as a demoness major who participated in shooting competitions. However, in front of Lyca, she was the funny and sweet cousin who loved to play with her when they were young. Tang Rui moved the knight towards Lyca's queen. This long-founding school of elites is actually like a military school. But instead of training you for wars, you are trained to be ruthless in the business world. Most people who come out on the top of this school are now business tycoons. She sneered. This is a very selfish school for the arrogant elites who think they are better than the military who defend this country. How stupid. Disgust laced her tone. In response, Lyca let out a deep sigh. This was because of the current Huang family's condition. She was completely helpless about this matter. If the Huang family don't find their peace, Lyca won't be able to achieve her dream either. And that cousin of yours? What was her name? Lady Huang Shaoxian? Humph. I am wondering why she is so proud of herself. She is not even very good at shooting targets. How can she even be compared to you? Tang Rui and Lyca were descendants of the Tang family whose roots lay in the military. The two actually grew up playing with darts. Well, by playing, it meant Tang Rui kept throwing the darts and Lyca lying down while appreciating her cousin's talents. Seeing a woman who was very good with darts was very refreshing for Lyca. Still, Tang Rui knew that Lyca was not someone to be trifled with. She might have a lazy ass, but she was also very good in self-defense using her weird martial arts. Moreover, she also saw her handle daggers before. As the person who could be considered closest to Lyca, she knew that this woman was someone who wouldn't hesitate to kill anyone who dared to mess with her. Let's not talk about irrelevant people, alright? Lyca moved her queen and eyed her cousin. Tell me more about this long-founding school of elites. As someone who was considered a military genius, Tang Rui's information about everyone else was not lacking. Well, where would you like me to start? You know, the Tang family has never involved themselves in matters like this. We chose to focus on training and serving the country. As for those people, they clearly look down on people who came from military families and think that we are all brutes with no brains. Cousin, you really should show those people the real Tang family genius. Never allow them to trample on you. Humph. Those people are quite arrogant because of their money. They actually think that they can do everything using their cash. Let me tell you about the Su family from the north of the country. Lyca cleared her throat, interrupting her cousin's words. It seems that Tang Rui missed her so much, she couldn't stop herself from telling Lyca all the rumors that she gathered on her previous assignment. Long-founding school of elites. She reminded. Oh. Yes, how could I forget? Hee, Tang Rui gave an awkward laugh. Anyway, the exams that will happen in 6 months. It should be invention and martial arts. In this final exam, you can invent anything under the heavens. The better the invention, the bigger the points. Only those people with top points will fight in martial arts. I don't have the details, but I am quite sure those elites are not so smart. They just use their money to pay someone to create something for them. Of course, being rich is considered a skill too. So I am sure that they use their money to pay someone to invent and buy it. Anyway, the school does not care about this. You can cheat, you can copy someone's invention as long as you have the capability. As I said, this is like the military-type survival of the fittest training. How irritating. Lyca said. Checkmate. Humph. You are only making me talk while you think about chess. This is unfair, I want another game. I am tired. You are always like this. Whenever you win you always say you are tired, so I won't. She made a deliberate pause when Lyca passed her something. What is this? She eyed the glass tube that was sealed with wood. On top of the wood is a small red button. Made of compound. Speak properly, cousin, you know I don't understand things like this. Tang Rui interrupted her. A smoke bomb that will create a big spark capable of blinding the opponent. Especially those wearing night vision goggles. This will not only create a blinding light but will also emit some poisonous gas capable of knocking down a man who is 250 pounds. Lyca answered. When it came to her inventions, Lyca was never lazy in her explanations. This was because these things were clearly dangerous. She would not want this cousin of hers to harm herself. Payment. You will give this to me? Of course, Tang Rui beamed. She knew about Lyca's toys and how each and every one of them were clearly dangerous but was specifically designed for military personnel like Tang Rui. Thank you. Do you have any more of these? I can buy. No. Lyca shook her head. Right now, she was not planning to reveal her secrets to the world. Long Founding School of Elites. A week later. Founded in 1095, this school used to be a place where the royal families and noble families of the country of Su learned their craft. With its staggering motto, the house that rules the lands, the school received a lot of recognition from the international community and was considered one of the top research universities in humanities and social sciences, agronomy, robotics, chemistry and physics. Located in the middle of a 10-hectare forest near the border of Long City and Xia City, the Long Founding School of Elites boasts the view of both the river and the sea. It was known that the school did not accept nouveau riche people but only the founding families of each region. Or at least that's what everyone outside the school knew. Lyca lazily looked at the castle in front of her. Yes, it was indeed a castle. Something that she only saw in the movies with princesses and their knights in shining armors. When Lyca arrived at this school, she was honestly surprised to know that her grandfather's arrangement was not going to happen. The woman who was touring them mentioned that since there are only 200 students this year, they decided to put everyone in one castle. Of course, everyone would have their own room that is complete with amenities where they can cook, wash their clothes and even a small gym to train their body. Extravagant? Well, Lyca hated it. This school only allowed their own servants that were assigned to each student. These people would be in charge of cooking and doing all the chores that their master needed. The thing was Lyca doesn't trust any of them. Not the school, not the people around her and of course, not the servants that were to be assigned to her. She eyed Shunka who was walking next to her. Right now, Shunka's identity as a representative from the Huang family was somewhat special. Lyca didn't know how the old man was able to pull such a thing off but she guessed that this was something normal in this school. While in this school, Shunka would act as her bodyguard. But since only the administration knew of this, he would pretend to be her classmate instead. Moreover, because of the challenge between Huang Shaoxian and Lyca, both Shunka and Li Xian would have to stay in a room that was connected to their young miss room. Welcome to the Long Founding School of Elite Simple Abode. The woman who was touring the students was wearing an extremely tight pencil skirt paired with a blouse that seemed 2 sizes smaller than her original size. Her blonde hair was in a tight bun and a smile was plastered on her face. She asked them to call her Miss Xian. She was one of the lecturers in this school and was the one assigned to lead the new students around the abode, the literal name of the castle. Check out the room assignments over there. You can see your names with the keycards. If you lose your keycard you have to pay for. I know you can afford it but the payment is usually in shares. The one that you will inherit from your family for your respective companies. She beamed, a dimple appearing in her cheeks. Only the keycard can be used to open the doors. So you have to be very careful. Curfew is 12 midnight. Sex is allowed but no killing. She smirked when she heard most male students chuckle. Once you get caught an extreme punishment will be given. She then looked at every one of them. Aside from our research building, this is the most secured facility in the campus. The security mechanisms will be equipped after 12 so if you are not here by that time I highly suggest that you just go home to your family and not come back. Do you understand me? Seeing some people nod, Miss Xian smiled. Tomorrow at 4 in the afternoon we will have a grand assembly and a banquet after. You will meet everyone by then. 1 month worth of humanities classes will start the day after tomorrow. After a month, everyone will focus on their chosen field of science in regards to their invention. She said before bidding everyone goodbye. Right now, there were about 30 students in the hall. All of them were wearing branded clothes and sweet perfumes. Lyca started to observe everyone in the room. Her habit of staring was once again activated as she looked at the beautiful faces of the people around her. Was this some sort of a beauty contest? Lyca wondered. Male and female, all tall, all elegant and perfect. She didn't know that the Su country was actually full of beautiful heirs and heiresses. You should stop staring. She heard Shunka's voice behind her. Lyca immediately turned towards the man and eyed the 2 keycards in his hand. It makes people uncomfortable. Shunka added. Lyca immediately smiled. This man was getting agitated because of the presence of good-looking males around him. Was he afraid that he would give in to temptation and sleep with one of them? She chuckled at her own thoughts. Poor Li Xian, very poor indeed. Seeing the weird smile on Lyca's face, Shunka sighed and led her to the 3rd floor where their rooms were located. No elevators? Lyca frowned. Was she supposed to walk like this every day? It's currently full. All students are using it. Exercise is good for your body. Shunka said. Then carry me. Lyca stopped walking after a few steps. He looked at her, wanting to know if she was serious with her words. Then he remembered Huang Shenghong's words about how Lyca was a little lazy. Was this still considered a little lazy? Carry me. She looked at him and batted her eyes, hoping that he would see her as a little sister. Since this man was already in love with another man, it would be hard for her to use her charms. So she decided to act as a little sister instead. Previous chapter. Shunka stared at her in disbelief. Then he looked at the other students who were also walking on the huge staircase. Without saying anything, Shunka carried her, one arm under her legs, the other supporting her back. A beautiful smile immediately slithered onto her face as she held onto his neck. The scent of refreshing wood reached her nose. This man smells like heaven. She buried her face into his neck, making him flinched. After a few more minutes, the two arrived in room 304 where Lyca will stay. While Shunka will stay in the next smaller room 305. All right. You can leave now. Lyca said as she sprawled herself on the bed. Indeed, a bed was one of the greatest inventions in this world. She laughed inwardly as she thought of her previous life where the bed was not as comfortable as this. This was indeed the peak of luxury. A king-size soft bed. Seeing Lyca ignore him, Shunka excused himself and walked towards the next room. His room was obviously smaller than Lyca's. However, it was still very well furnished. With its queen-size bed, a lamp table, a study table a few feet away from his bed, a small counter with coffee maker and a cabinet for his clothes. This was enough to satisfy Shunka. Sighing, the man sat on his bed. He couldn't help but stroke his chest. For some reason, being with Lyca always gave him an ominous feeling. It was as if her eyes were saying something opposite to her words. This young lady was very unfathomable and hateful. Shunka examined his clothes cabinet and decided to change from the suit that he was currently wearing. It was recommended that everyone come here with a suit, such a weird rule. And he found it uncomfortable. He immediately took off his coat, followed by his undershirt. Once the feel of luxury left his upper body, he proceeded to take off his pants, leaving his comfortable boxers on. Someone's gasp interrupted him. He stilled for a few seconds before turning towards the door. You. Oh. Don't mind me. Lyca walked towards the bed. I was here to check your bed. She smiled, her eyes were of course glued to his abs. It was as if a cold bucket of water was thrown on him. He didn't notice Lyca standing behind him. He coldly glared at her, hoping she would understand the awkwardness in the current situation. Of course, she didn't. Instead, Lyca continued walking towards the bed, her eyes still on his body. Lyca, I believe. You have a very nice body. Lyca interrupted him. No wonder, Li Xian likes you. Shunka froze, eyes widening at her words. What the hell was she going on about? Nice bed too. She beamed as her eyes darted towards his crotch. Nice one, I mean the pillows. Shunka stood there, staring straight at Lyca's lecherous gaze. Did she realize that this is such an abnormal situation? And why was she talking about Li Xian? Please leave. Can I touch it? No. Please leave. Is it because I'm not male? Shunka felt his neck turn hot, blood rush through his face as he strode towards her. The little hate that he had seemed to increase. With his face flushed, Shunka held her arm, trying to pull her out of his bed. Surprisingly, Lyca didn't even do anything and just let him pull her towards him. Hard. Lyca beamed, her hand was already in his stomach. I like it. Shunka was honestly speechless. However, he knew that talking to this woman was useless. So he pulled her towards her room, let her sit on her own bed and left. This time, he made sure to lock the door of his room. Just what kind of situation did he get himself into? Since the door was already locked, Shunka didn't see Lyca's cold expression the moment he left. The smile on her face was no longer there, her eyes were sharp and chilly as she continued to stare at the door. Then she dialed her phone. Ian, send me everything. Yes, young lady. She heard Ian's voice on the other line and immediately ended the call. Because of Shunka's internal strength, Lyca decided to let her people gather all the information that they could find about Shunka. She wanted to know everything about the man. To her surprise, everything about his birth was considered confidential information. Then she discovered that Shunka's uncle who died 2 years ago worked under her grandfather. She immediately concluded that Shunka's identity was kept a secret by old man Huang. However, she didn't give up. Instead, she asked her people to gather all the training files about this mysterious man. She thought that a man with his strength would surely slip up in his training. Shunka was said to have started his training inside the Huang facility at the tender age of 10. Surely, in those 13 years of training, Shunka must have shown his strength at least once. And what she found totally surprised her. Shunka had always been second in everything. Be it marksmanship, anatomy, knife skills, explosives or martial arts. He was never the strongest. Because of this, her cautiousness against the man had increased. She wanted to know how he was able to control his strength. So she asked him to fight with her. Sadly, her father arrived and stopped it. So, Lyca had the idea of touching his body instead. As someone who had studied acupuncture and assassination, Lyca was extremely sensitive to a person's strength. She could determine a person's strength just by touching their pulse or their body. And so she touched him. Again she found something unexpected. Shunka was not hiding his strength. He was actually injured, gravely at that. If her guess was right, Shunka was using his internal strength to suppress his injury. Now that the mystery against this man has disappeared, Lyca didn't know if she should continue to waste her time investigating him. Or if she should just get rid of him and frame Huang Shaoxian and her father. Grand Assembly. The Grand Assembly that she was expecting involved talking and a lot more talking, while she sat there and pretended to listen. However, in front of her was something far from that. This was not a Grand Assembly but a banquet, a party where everyone was allowed to build connections and interact with each other. This was one of the things that she hated the most. Lyca sat there, a smile plastered on her face as she eyed everyone from the balcony. The party was currently held in a huge lawn with its own fountain and beautiful lights. Everyone was wearing formal clothes as they talked and laughed with each other. Meanwhile, Lyca decided to stay in a dark balcony located at the mansion fronting the lawn. She took a sip of her champagne and eyed Synopsis, who was silently standing next to her. Since that incident the other day, both Lyca and Synopsis didn't utter a word to each other. Synopsis was obviously upset while Lyca was still deliberating if she should get rid of the injured man next to her. Lyca believed that this injury would become a burden to her in the future. However, this man didn't actually do anything to provoke her or her parents. He had been obedient and didn't do anything but stay silent. Killing him would be a pity. Maybe she could use him to test her poisons? Or perhaps use him to perform tasks for her. Either way, Lyca was still hesitant to kill him. Of course, Synopsis had no way of knowing this. On the outside, Synopsis stood next to Lyca like a statue while on the inside, he was still fuming about this pervert's actions the other day. He couldn't understand why the good-natured and casual Colonel Huang was able to raise a daughter like this. The more he thought about it, the most irritated he became. It seems that he was really bound to hate this young lady. Isn't this Miss Huang? Lyca Huang, an amused voice echoed behind them. I never expected that Miss Huang would actually dare to bring a bodyguard to this party. There were rumors that you are really scared for an assassination attempt. Is that true? Lyca turned towards the man and two women. The man was huge, big and tall compared to her midget height. While the women looked like dwarves standing next to the big guy. She frowned and turned her head away. She was not going to talk to people she doesn't know. Seeing this, the man's face turned ugly. Master Lin, it seems that she is ignoring you. The woman snickered. Perhaps she is deaf, another one said. This only made the young master in front of them fume. Lyca clearly looked at him for a few seconds before turning her head back to the party. What was this woman's problem? Are you ignoring this young master? This time, Lyca didn't even look at him. She elegantly brought the champagne glass to her scarlet lips and took a sip of the fragrant beverage. Master Lin. Shut up. Young Master Lin's face was dark as he walked towards Lyca. He extended his hand to grab her shoulders. This action was easily stopped by Synopsis. What are you doing? Let go of my hand. He glared at Synopsis, who twisted his hand as if it was nothing. You dare hurt someone like me? Even if you are in the military, I wouldn't. It seems that someone is spreading secrets. Lyca's voice was surprisingly sweet. This was something that young Master Lin never expected. Who is it? She turned towards him. Now that he had the time to look at Lyca's face, young Master Lin couldn't stop himself from gasping. This. How come that damn Zhang told him Lyca was nothing special? Young Master Lin stuttered. When they told him to provoke Lyca, he never expected that this bodyguard would directly involve himself in her matter. Let me go or I. Or what? Lyca's lips lifted into a smile. Miss Huang, I suggest you let Master Lin go now or we will scream. One of the women said. Ignoring her words, Lyca stared at this young Master Lin, eyes narrowed. She had been feeling that someone was watching her since she arrived at this party. This was another reason why she decided to find a remote place to hide and observe everyone. Who would have thought that these people would directly send someone to provoke her? Finally, Lyca made her move. She turned her body towards the man and suddenly used her small hand to grab the man's cheek. What are you doing? One of the women said. I can't wrap my hand around his neck. Lyca said as she raised her head to look at young Master Lin. Lucky. Young Master Lin widened his eyes. If she could wrap her hand around his neck? Did this mean she would break his neck? That damn Zhang already told him that this Lyca was abnormal. However, he forgot to tell him that she was actually a murderer. Young Master Lin couldn't stop himself from shaking. For some reason, Lyca's eyes made him scared. What the hell was wrong with this woman? Miss Lyca. Do you want to die? Lyca interrupted his words. No, please let me go. He knew martial arts, he had trained since he was young. However, his body refused to move, rather he couldn't move. Fear slithered inside him as his body refused to follow his thoughts. He couldn't lift his other arms or move his body. What was happening? Suddenly Lyca tightened her hand around the man's neck. Who? She asked. Seeing young Master Lin's confusion from Lyca's words, Synopsis shook his head inwardly. She meant who told you about her bodyguard being in the military. He translated her words. Oh, it was young Master Zhang, the second son of the Huang family. He immediately blurted out. Who? Again, Lyca asked. And again, Synopsis was forced to translate her words. She's asking who sent you here? Is it still young Master Zhang? Young Master Lin was speechless. However, seeing the cold gaze that Lyca gave him, he opened his mouth to answer her. No, I just came here to get some fresh air. Seeing Lyca narrowed her eyes at him, young Master Lin continued. I really came here to get some fresh air. I came here with the ladies. I was planning to have a good time. This was a remote and dark part of the balcony and he knew that this is a little blind spot of the CCTV. He was originally planning to come here to have a good time. I was not planning to provoke you, I was only planning to make you leave. Lyca let go of his neck. She then turned her back away from him, as if nothing just happened. Leave. It was Synopsis. It seemed that he could already see his role in this woman's life in the near future. Miss Lyca is busy. Leave. Oh. Oh. Of course we will leave. Master Lin nodded his chubby face and almost ran away with his women in tow. Seeing this, Shunka turned towards Lyca. Do you believe him? He asked. No. She answered and looked at the people in the balcony. No killing. That was the rule in this school. However, since they didn't say they couldn't hurt each other, Lyca assumed that they were allowed to do just that. A snort escaped her lips. She knew that someone asked that fatty to come in here, yet, she chose not to act. At least not right now. Or at least not tonight. After leaving the balcony, Master Lin immediately went towards the office of the Supreme Student Council where young Master Zhang was there with his friends and a few other women. HMP. You told me that she won't hurt me. He exclaimed when he opened the door. Young Master Zhang. Explain yourself. Are you trying to get me killed? Until now, he couldn't forget the look on that woman's eyes. Moreover, her bodyguard was clearly a strong person too. That was not a part of what this young Master Zhang told him. Because of that, he couldn't help but wonder if this man was planning to have him killed. Young Master Lin, please calm down and explain. The one who spoke was a 23-year-old man with a sleek black hair, sharp eyebrows and beautiful features. Are you trying to say that my future fiancé hurt you? He snorted. Young Master Long, I am telling the truth. She strangled me. Look. Look, there should be some signs there. Maybe some bruises. He lifted his head to show them his neck. However, instead of listening to him, everyone started laughing their butts off. Young Master Lin, your neck is full of fat. We can't really see any bruises. It was young Master Zhang. He continued laughing along with everyone else. Do you think her hand would be able to grab your neck? The last time I saw my cousin she was skinny and her hands were small. Are you sure that you actually saw her this time? Young Master Lin felt his face turn hot. Her white hair is not something common. And that bodyguard of hers, that man grabbed my hand and twisted it. I felt something crack in my hand. This time, everyone laughed even more. Young Master Zhang, how tall are you? 6 foot. Why are you asking such questions? He asked the woman who sat next to young Master Long. Well, you are tall and your body is huge. Please forgive my words, but can someone really just grab your neck and twist your hand? That really sounds impossible to me, the woman smiled. Moreover, every one of us knows that you practiced martial arts when you were young. Young Master Lin balled his hand into a fist, his face flushed as he glared at the woman. You, how dare you? Young Master Lin, no offense, but this is really hard to believe. Was it possible that the 2 women you were with earlier refused to kiss you, so you were in a bad mood? Young Master Lin was truly speechless. Unable to contain his anger, he stomped off and left the room. These people had been making fun of him because he had the lowest family influence in this group. It was lucky for him to be able to come to this school because his father had to beg the Long family to make him act as young Master Long's assistant. Because of this, everyone who was very close to young Master Long had been making fun of him and treating him like a slave. These people never treated him like a human being. He tightened his fists as he thought of his revenge against these people. But first, he needed to teach that Lyca and her bodyguard a lesson that they couldn't forget. Right now, young Master Lin was blaming Lyca for everything. After all, no one believed him because of her small frame. Unbeknownst to him, the moment he left that room, young Master Long also asked everyone to leave except for his good friend Zhang Ji. You are really smart. Zhang Ji was Lyca's cousin. He is the second son of Huang Ying. Now that stupid Lin will try and get his revenge against that cousin of mine. He couldn't help but laugh at the scene that he witnessed earlier. This young Master Long was indeed very smart. I wanted to see Lyca's skill. Young Master Long responded with a smile. It is only right that she proves her worth to me. Well, my mother will come here tomorrow. Would you like her to formally introduce you to? Not as a fiancé. After all, your grandfather didn't want this alliance to happen. I want Aunt Ying to introduce me as the head of the student council at this school. Zhang Ji smiled and nodded. Alright, let's do that. Thank you. What happened earlier became an eye-opener for Lyca. Shunka was a very talented man. He was actually very good at translating her words. It was as if he could read her mind. In less than 30 seconds, she immediately concluded to keep him alive. She eyed the man who was standing like a statue beside her. Someone is watching. She said in a low voice enough for him to hear. A cold breeze followed her words. She involuntarily shivered and immediately blamed her off-shoulder black dress. The party had started for about an hour now and it didn't show any signs of stopping. How tiring, she thought. Probably the student council. This was the first time that the Huang family had participated in something like this. It was only normal that everyone would keep their eye on Lyca and her cousin. The Zhang family also has a representative. Zhang Ji, 22. That man earlier was young Master Lin Tao from the Lin family. Rumor said that he was only allowed here because of the young master of the Long family, Long Yi. Very well informed. She praised as a comical glint flashed in her eyes. However, since it was dark, Shunka failed to notice it. Who is that? She pointed at the man wearing an all-red suit. That is the young master of the Qin family. Qin Feng is 21, he just arrived from abroad. He has already finished his undergraduate studies and is majoring in economic and international studies. He is the heir to the Qin family. Lyca smiled in response. And that? That is the young miss of the Lin family main branch. That is young Miss Lin Yao, the pride of the main Lin family. Young Master Lin and his family were considered a side branch and not as influential as that family. Anyway, she is adept in arts, music and a very good marksman. She is 21 and engaged to the young master of the Ho family, Ho Liang. That is the man wearing a cape over there. He is a useless womanizing trash and this young Miss Lin hates him. However, the two couldn't, he gulped when he noticed Lyca smiling at him. Continue. She beamed. Wasn't it nice to enjoy the view with her champagne while this man tells her everything about everyone in this party? It seems that keeping him alive was the best decision that she made since arriving in this school. I love it. Continue. Oh. The two couldn't really ask their parents to cancel the engagement as this was set up by their elders. Plus the Ho and Lin families are really close and have partnerships in various businesses. Indeed, that sounded very complicated. She watched the beautiful young Miss Lin for a few seconds, then looked at Ho Liang, who had two women in his arms. The man was blatantly disrespecting Miss Lin in front of everyone. A weird laughter escaped her lips. Of course, Lyca was not planning to involve herself in their engagement. However, she needed a person to test her previous solvent. Unable to stop herself, another laughter escaped her scarlet lips. It seems that young Master Ho was a very unfortunate individual. Who is that? Lyca said, her head was tilted to her left. Right. Red. 5'6". Curls. Woman. She said. She felt this woman's gaze for a few seconds now. The woman had been pretending to talk to some people while glancing at this balcony. This balcony was dark and since she was wearing a black dress, it would be difficult for someone without trained eyes to spot them. That should be someone from the student council. Young Miss Lu Qin of the Lu family. They are not from Long City but from the neighboring Xia city. Her family is the rival of the Xia family when it comes to wealth and territory. I believe, right now, the Lu family is fighting with the Xia family over the ports. Complicated and chaotic. He answered. As someone trained since he was 10, Shenke would never come in a place like this without knowing everyone's identity. It was always better to know who your enemy was. He looked at Lyca's side profile as he wondered what weird things she was thinking about now. Oh. Lyca turned towards the sweet laughter of a few people not far away from her. Surprisingly, it was Huang Shaoxian. The social butterfly Huang Shaoxian was happily talking to a group of men and women that Lyca didn't recognize. With her long white gown with a tube top and pink lips, Huang Shaoxian looked like she was about to marry someone. Heh. Now that she looked at everyone's dresses, she immediately noticed that Huang Xiaoxuan's was one of the most luxurious gowns that would immediately attract anyone's attention. She eyed the sparkling stone in the dress and immediately felt a little heavy. Too wasteful. This Huang Shaoxian actually wore an expensive wedding gown in the Grand Assembly. If only she used the money to buy food. She shook her head. It was clear that Huang Shaoxian wanted to build connections. She wanted attention so she could easily build connections with the future heirs and heiresses. Huang Shaoxian didn't even bring Li Xian here. She must have feared that the appearance of a bodyguard beside her would make her look weak. The thing was, Huang Shaoxian failed to understand that these connections won't be able to help her in the future. These people wanted benefits that might be something that Huang Shaoxian won't be able to give unless she became the CEO of Huang Security. Smiling, she turned towards him. Let's go back. She said. For some reason, she felt that this party resembled the gatherings that they used to have in her previous life. It only had one purpose and that was to increase your connections and find someone suitable to marry. Just the thought of being married to one of these people almost made her feel sick. Memories of her past life soon filled her head. Wedding night, betrayal, death. Face paling, she closed her eyes and let out a long sigh. Seeing this, Shenke immediately knew something was wrong. He didn't bother arguing about the weird nickname as he nodded. All right. However, before the two could move from the balcony, the sound of someone using a microphone echoed. Ahem. Good evening everyone. Lyca and Shenke turned towards the fountain. Both raised their eyebrow at the same time when they saw an unfamiliar man wearing a purple suit with pink neckties, standing by the fountain with a few students. I am young Master Xia and I am from the student council. As you all know, our positions are inherited so we have been in this school before the school year started to take care of things. One of the things that we agreed to have today is a point system. Nothing fancy, just a silly point system that will constitute 10% of your final grade, 6 months from now. He smiled, his phoenix eyes glinting with mischief. I am here to announce the mechanics of the point system which will start tonight. In this system, you can challenge anyone you want to. You can challenge them in debate, drawing, dancing, swordplay, musical instruments, martial arts, shooting competition, archery, you name it. He continued, his gaze roamed around the students. If one issued a challenge today, it must be completed before midnight of the next day. No excuses. Each challenge will have the same rewards. Winner will get 2 points. And the loser will have 3 points subtracted from their total points. Gasps and whispers followed his words. Seeing this, a confident smirk could be seen in the man's face. Once you reach 0 or negative you will be kicked out of this academy, with no chance of returning even if your parents beg the school. The winner would of course have the opportunity to join the student council body and will get 20 million in gold. Another round of gasps and whispers followed. An outsider is not allowed to know about this point system. You cannot tell your family about this as well. Refusal to follow the law will get you expelled and the school will ban your families from joining the school for the next 10 years. Questions? He looked at everyone. Here. A chubby man wearing a white suit raised his hand. Are we allowed to challenge someone to gambling? A game of chance? No, young Master Ning. You cannot challenge someone to a poker. Only abilities that involve real skills. He looked at the chubby man in disgust. Can we have a bet in every challenge? You can bet. Young Master Xia said. Life and death challenge? Someone from the back raised a question. No. We will not take responsibility for anyone's death. Therefore you are not allowed to have life and death challenges inside the school. Of course what you do outside of the 10-hectare school premise has nothing to do with us. He winked at the person who asked. Are there any more questions? Can we issue a challenge to anyone? Someone with huge eyeglasses asked. You can issue a challenge but you have to issue a reward as well. For instance, you can challenge someone to withstand one shot of your newly made gun. People who can withstand that will win this challenge and will have that 2 points while you lose 3. Additionally, you also have to give them another reward. Because of the peculiarity of the challenge, you can give them whatever you want. Most people would reward shares while some would use diamonds of equal value. Young Master Xia explained. Lyca frowned at his words. If her guess was right, then this should be the exact reason why they created this crazy system. People were bound to make something, an invention. And they would need someone to test it. In that case, they could issue a challenge to everyone. Young Master Xia continued. The crux of the matter is that the challenge will last for 24 hours. If you want to issue a challenge to everyone, it would mean you are ready to have points taken from you in case you lose. Example, if you have a total of 20 points and 10 people will take your challenge. Out of 10, if 8 people were able to withstand or fight you and win. Meaning you lose to 8 different people in 24 hours. So you will lose a total of 24 points while each of them will gain your promised rewards and 2 points from the school. Now, 20 points minus 24 points means you now have negative points. Meaning you have to leave. The man in purple started beaming. So unless you are extremely confident that no one would be able to beat you, I suggest you stick to challenging a simple person that you can easily bully. He snorted. Did I answer your questions? Yes, sir. The man at the back became enthusiastic. Alright, rankings will be released every Friday. Since today is a Tuesday, the first set of rankings will be released a few days from now. Tonight is going to be the start of this rule. Every academy teacher has already approved, including the director of the school. If you want to challenge anyone, just open the school app on your phone. I'm sure you don't need some teaching to do that, right? The young masters and young misses started laughing. The atmosphere turned light. Seeing this, young Master Xia added. No silly challenges like, I challenge this young miss to kiss me for 2 million diamonds. Anyone who issues a silly challenge like that will have 5 points taken from them. Check your student profile to see your total points. Each of you will be given 10 points tonight. After that you can start challenging anyone. Last question. A woman with a crisp voice and blonde hair raised her hand. If 3 people decided to challenge person A on the same day, what would happen? Naturally, that is not allowed. If person 1, 2, and 3 challenge person A on the same day, then person 1 will do the challenge tomorrow. Person 2 will do it the day after tomorrow. Person 3 will do it after that. And yes, person A won't have any rest at all. What a cruel rule. Lyca noted when she heard the rule. This was designed to kick someone out of the school. She snorted. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Lyca's eyes turned towards Shenke. For some reason, her mind was telling her that they did this because of Li Xian and Shenke's presence. This school was indeed full of wolves. It's funny how Lyca didn't know their names yet and someone was already scheming against her. She turned her gaze towards the man in purple. She immediately wondered if they could challenge the student council themselves. That should be possible, right? As if on cue, a man wearing an all-black suit with a mask on his face asked. Can we challenge someone from the student council? The man in purple's eyes lit up. Of course. The greater the challenge, the greater the rewards. This sentence seemed to make everyone overly excited. Seeing this, Lyca pat Shenke's shoulders and the two of them silently walked out of the party. There was no need to stay in that party anymore. Lyca let out a yawn when the two arrived in her room. She motioned him not to leave yet as she had something to tell him. Take off your clothes. She said. You, Shenke's face turned ugly. What was this pervert trying to do? Lyca, that is improper. It is better that we keep our relationship professional. Lyca only smiled in response. However, her mind was honestly still thinking about this point system. Young Master Lin's knowledge about the current arrangement only meant that other people know of this too. Meaning, there are people who knew Shenke's identity. And for a commoner to join this school is a bit too much for those rich young masters and heirs. Someone is scheming. She said and sat at the edge of her bed. I need to help you. Without Shenke here, no one would carry her in the stairs or translate her words. No one would tell her about every gossip in this school. This man was very useful for someone like her who thinks gathering information is a very taxing job. Help what? You just asked me to take off my clothes. How is that supposed to help me? Unable to stop himself, Shenke spoke his thoughts. This woman, was she going to take advantage of his body? I believe you drank a lot of champagne, you should sleep now. He turned his back and started walking towards his room. However, Lyca's hand suddenly grabbed his shoulders. It wasn't full of force, yet it was enough to stop him from walking. He immediately tried to shake her hand off. Irritated, Synopsis used his left hand to grab Lyca's right hand that was on his shoulder. What? I don't like you. Lyca suddenly said. Well, I don't like you too. He blurted, his anger rising in his chest. He was supposed to be calm and collected at all times, yet this woman is really testing his patience over and over again. How is he going to survive in the next 6 months with a woman like this by his side? You're not worth my time. Lyca added. Good. She smiled. Now take off your clothes. Why the hell would I do that? If it makes you that uncomfortable, I can take off my clothes too. It's all fair. He widened his eyes. I am not taking my clothes off. He said. This craziness is truly beyond his comprehension. He let go of her hand and continued walking. You are injured. Lyca's words immediately made him halt his steps. He turned towards her, as his heart raced. How the hell did she know? He gulped when he saw Lyca hold her hands in front of him. I want to help. She moved her fingers as if she was massaging something. This immediately made him suspicious. Why does that action make him uncomfortable? What injury are you talking about? Synopsis pretended not to know. I am not injured. I am too lazy to talk. If you want to continue suppressing your injury, then leave my room. I don't want to talk to stupid people. She hissed and started walking towards her bed. She already wasted a lot of time talking to this brute, and yet, he dared deny his injury? How hateful. Seeing Lyca already lying on her bed, Synopsis stood there as still as a statue. So that's it? No explanations? No questions? She just wanted him to take off his clothes to help his injury. If only she would explain more, then he would have understand everything. This woman was truly unreasonable. However, how could Synopsis deny Lyca's request this time? Even old man Huang and other people around him didn't know that he had an injury that he got when he was 8. Only his late uncle knew of this matter. But in only a few interactions, Lyca was able to find out about it. Was it truly possible that she was skilled in controlling her internal energy too? Now that he thought about it, the attack that Lyca did to her cousin was really quick and merciless. Was it possible that this woman used her internal energy to do that? How did you know I'm injured? He frowned. Why should I tell you? Lyca said without looking at him. I will take off my clothes. He said as he sighed inwardly. He was really interested to know how this young lady would help him with his injury. Humph. Lyca snorted. In the end, he agreed to take off his clothes. Yet he was acting hard to get earlier. Did he really think she liked to touch people who already had a partner? She, Lyca Huang, was not that kind of woman. No pants. Just the shirt. She said as she sat back up. Come. He motioned him to approach her. Synopsis complied. This woman had already seen him almost naked once, and it was not like he was ashamed of the body that he had worked hard for. However, he could not deny that Lyca's eyes were making him uncomfortable. There was actually no lust in it, and he found that a problem. Why was she looking at him like an object instead of a man with a well-defined body that could fire up a woman's desire? He found this fact not only disturbing but really scary. ######. When Lyca touched his chest, Synopsis wasn't able to stop the hiss from his lips. Her hands were cold freezing. Her face on the other hand was showing that weird smile again. Aren't you going to ask me how I got injured? No. Lyca said. That was none of her business. What's important was for her to keep him by her side in the next 6 months. She needed a strong ally. Drink this. She handed her a black tablet. What's this? Of course, Lyca didn't answer him. Instead, she handed him another tablet. And this, she added. Now that she was able to touch him without any protests, Lyca became certain that the man before her was stabbed a few centimeters away from his heart. It was supposed to be deadly and was enough to kill a young boy. However, another person initially saved Synopsis before he was able to control his own energy. She watched as Synopsis drank the medicine without asking any more questions. Then she fell into a deep stupor. There were a total of 7 energy points in the body. The crown, third eye, throat, heart, solar, sacral, and root. Each one of them was located at specific parts of a person's body. In her previous world, these points were considered useless to a magician as magicians used their mana to create magic. Most magicians did not use this for cultivating one's energy points as it would take months or years. To a normal magician that was nothing but a waste of time. Unlike the normal magician, the previous Lyca was an assassin who relied on her senses and body to kill her enemy. Because of this, she was very familiar in using energy points to her advantage. Each energy point would give you absolute control of a certain ability. For instance, controlling the crown energy point would make one more intelligent and would increase their awareness, which was very important for an assassin like Lyca, while cultivating a person's sacral energy point would enhance their stamina and speed. The only disadvantage was the fact that a normal person would take almost half of their lifetime to be able to control one energy point. Of course, the talented ones would be able to do it in a matter of months. Cultivating one's energy points was not only difficult and time-consuming, it was also useless in a battle unless you practiced the right martial art that would enhance your ability. This was, after all, not a superpower but a way to enhance oneself using the energy of the world. Heart? She asked. The only reason why he would cultivate his heart energy point was because it was known to suppress any injury. The look on Synopsis' face was enough to confirm her words. Based on her knowledge from the previous world, cultivating one's heart energy point would increase one's control on his body. Absolute control would make anyone hit any target as long as they were able to control their vision and hands. This would let the user suppress any injury or poison too. But once a practitioner suppress injuries, his ability to control the other part of his body would lessen. Of course, something like this needed a lot of practice. My uncle taught me, Shunka said after a few minutes of silence. After drinking that medicine, he immediately felt a cold sensation in his chest. Something that contrasted the usual hot and sharp pain that he felt every now and then. For him to feel something like that in 15 years was enough to make him happy. Lyca said nothing as she held his pulse, silently observing any peculiarities in his body. Healing this man won't be easy. 6 months. I can heal you in 6 months. Heal? Keep my secret. I can heal you and kill you. Keep that in mind. Shunka stared at her brown eyes, wondering if she was telling the truth. His uncle told him that even the technology won't be able to heal him. The internal energy he painstakingly practiced was something that could only suppress the injury until he grew old and died. Even with the internal energy, Shunka still needed to suffer pain if the temperature got too cold or hot. For more than 10 years now, Shunka didn't attempt to develop any of his energy points as he knew this might worsen his injury, or at least that's what his uncle told him. But like his words, he opened his mouth wanting to ask questions but ended up closing his mouth and saying nothing. He was curious, he wanted more information. Where did she learn this? How would she heal a wound that even technology couldn't heal? However, he also knew that Lyca would never answer any of his questions. Don't get the wrong idea. Lyca said. I don't like men who like other men. He was about to argue when Lyca continued. I hate cheating. You should never cheat on your partner. If I know that you cheated, I will cripple you down there. Then I will kill you. What the hell was she talking about? Don't deny. I know. She added, her face serious as a hint of warning can be seen in her eyes. Don't cheat or you are dead. Li Xian is not that good looking but his body is good. What are you talking about? He couldn't help but wonder how Lyca misunderstood him. Did she see something that would make her think he and Li Xian were lovers? I think there's a misunderstanding somewhere. Lyca nodded. I knew you were not a cheater. Shunka widened his eyes. Heh. As someone who never had a girlfriend before, he was not very experienced with women. However, he was certain that he was not attracted to his good brother Li Xian. However, Shunka was not planning on convincing someone who already made up their mind. In the end, Shunka nodded at Lyca's words.